Chapter 1207. P.S. The 41st Alliance is born, and its leader is a carefree individual. Chu Li Fist saluted. I'll take my leave then. He turned around and left. Chu Li, you killed Guyu, right? Ling Wufeng suddenly asked. Chu Li stopped in his tracks and turned around to look. You did, didn't you? Ling Wufeng said, I won't pursue this matter. Guyu was reckless and incompetent. I'm very disappointed. Chu Li felt a chill down his spine. He sighed and shook his head. Your Majesty, you're overthinking. I don't have a deep grudge against Commander Gu, it's just a small matter. I won't kill him even if I'm angry, I'll just beat him up to vent my anger. He can't do anything to me anyway. According to him, he has evidence that you're colluding with the Holy Church of Light, Guyu said. Chu Li was stunned. He did not expect Guyu to tell the Emperor about this. He laughed. Commander Gu might be able to believe that I'm colluding with other forces, but it's ridiculous to say that I'm colluding with the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light and I are like fire and water. They won't allow me to collude with them, they'll kill me no matter what. Guyu won't lie to me. Ling Wufeng shook his head. He must have found evidence. Chu Li, are you sure you're not colluding with the Holy Church of Light? Chu Li raised his finger and swore to the heavens. Oaths were extremely restrictive because of the existence of Outland. Once an oath was taken, it would correspond to heaven and earth, making it particularly effective. Chu Li was not afraid of oaths. He was not colluding with the Holy Church of Light, he only snuck into the Holy Church to deal with them. The two were completely different. Ling Wufeng nodded in satisfaction and smiled. How do you think the Holy Church of Light should be dealt with? Chu Li shook his head. Even the Emperor can't deal with it, how can I? All right, you may leave. Ling Wufeng waved his hand. Chu Li Fist saluted and strode away. Early in the morning, the bright sun shone on the backyard of the Crown Prince's residence. Lu Yurong was quietly reading in the gazebo, while a beautiful young lady was playing the guzheng. The sound of the guzheng soothed Lu Yurong's worries as she focused on her reading. Hurried footsteps were heard as Ling Jinghua strode toward them. He was beaming with joy, and there was a gust of wind beneath his feet. Yurong, congratulations! He laughed heartily as he entered the pagoda. The beautiful girl's music came to an abrupt end, and she tactfully excused herself. Ling Jinghua sat opposite Lu Yurong and laughed. It's done. Yurong, you'll soon be the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. So fast. Lu Yurong was surprised. She originally thought that the Emperor would take the opportunity to observe the actions of the courtiers and then look at Chu Li's actions. She did not expect that the Emperor would immediately make a decision and skip many steps in the middle, which surprised her. Ling Jinghua chuckled. Speaking of which, I have to thank Chu Li. He went to the palace to meet the Emperor just now and rejected the position of commander to recommend you instead. Lu Yurong snorted. Even if Chu Li had not rejected him, he would not have been able to become the commander. Since Chu Li had conveniently recommended him, Chu Li really had to thank him. Otherwise, the longer the delay, the more trouble there would be. Who knew what other problems might occur and who knew if someone else would intervene? Ling Jinghua sighed. This guy is really unexpected. Why would he recommend you, Yurong? He's up to no good. Lu Yurong scoffed. He must have thought that the Emperor despises him and that the person he recommended would not be approved by the Emperor. He didn't expect the Emperor to agree to it. That makes sense. Ling Jinghua clapped his hands and laughed. He shot himself in the foot this time. Great, ha! He looked up to the sky and laughed. He was overjoyed. He had always held a grudge against Chu Li and never succeeded in finding trouble with him. Now that he finally saw Chu Li being humiliated, he felt an indescribable joy. Lu Yurong smiled. But uncle-in-law, I'm not confident that I can take this position out of the blue. You can handle it. Ling Jinghua was confident in her. He smiled. Just do whatever you want. Also, don't let Chu Li go. We can't deal with him now. Lu Yurong sighed. After all, he recommended me. We can't let others say that we're biting the hand that feeds us. That's fine. Lung Jinghua said. Start preparing now. If there's a chance in the future, we'll get rid of him and kick him out of the fairy's capital. That way, he won't be able to stir up trouble. Yes. Lu Yurong smiled. Don't worry, uncle-in-law. I want to kick him out even more. He's a thorn in my side. That's true. Lung Jinghua understood what she was thinking. She had always been resourceful, and no one could compare to her. She had always been invincible, and had never been defeated. However, after meeting Chu Li, she was always at a disadvantage, and had suffered many losses. She was definitely not convinced, and wanted nothing more than to get back at him. He stood up and said, Go and thank her so that she won't pick on you. Yes. Lu Yurong nodded. Chu Li sat in the Tianshu courtyard while Xiao Shi sat opposite him. She stared at him without blinking. Her eyes were as deep as an ancient pond. It was as if her soul was being sucked into it. Chu Li said helplessly, My lady, I really can't be the commander. The emperor used me to test everyone. I don't want to be used like this. That's why I recommended Lu Yurong. Why did you have to recommend Lu Yurong? Xiao Shi scoffed. Is there really something going on between the two of you? Chu Li looked helpless. Xiao Shi scoffed. What's in it for you to help Lu Yurong get this position? Before Chu Li invited her to the palace, he had already told her about his plan. However, when she saw the result that Chu Li had predicted, she was a little unhappy. The commander of the Secret Guardians Hall was so close to him. He was so close to becoming the commander, but he just had to give it up so casually. Chu Li smiled. There's nothing special in it. It's just a message. My lady, don't worry. This matter is finally over. As long as she succeeds as the commander, everything will return to normal. Xiao Shi said, I hope she won't provoke us. I won't. Chu Li shook his head. Xiao Shi pouted. I've seen too many people who burn bridges after crossing the river. Lu Yurong isn't a kind person. She'll definitely think of ways to weaken you. You have to be careful. Don't fall into her hands. Chu Li nodded. I'll be careful. I need to go out for a while. You're the busiest. Xiao Shi scoffed and waved her hand. Chu Li stood up and returned to his courtyard. He suddenly disappeared and reappeared in his house in Gale City. He had already transformed into Zhao Daif and was sitting on his bed with his legs crossed. He had sensed that the jade pendant had been crushed, so he rushed back. Ko Qiong was standing outside. He was crushing the jade pendant and staring at the crushed pieces on the floor. Chu Li said, What's the matter? Come in. Ko Qiong quickly pushed the door open and gave a fist salute. Branch leader. What happened? Chu Li asked. Ko Qiong said, Branch leader, we've received news that a patrol has been assassinated in the Ji dynasty. Assassinated? Chu Li was stunned. Patrols from the Holy Church of Light were difficult to kill. They all had a unique escape skill, especially the Ji dynasty. Their overall strength was on the weaker side. It was surprising that they could kill a patrol. Ko Qiong said, Yes, he's been assassinated. The news has spread throughout the Great Light Peak. I heard that the saint plans to promote you to a patrol and avenge the previous patrol in the Ji dynasty. Chapter 1208. Ko Qiong widened his eyes and looked at Chu Li eagerly. Chu Li glared at him. Why? You want me to be a patrol? It's such a good opportunity to be promoted. Don't you want to go? Ko Qiong was surprised. Chu Li shook his head. It's unjustifiable. I won't go. Young master, this is a rare opportunity. Ko Qiong hurriedly said, If you miss this opportunity, I don't know when you will get another one. The war with the Qiu dynasty is coming to an end, so it'll be very difficult for me to get promoted again. There will be, Chu Li said faintly. Besides, I don't need to be promoted. I'm fine here. Young master, with your martial arts and talents, It's a waste of your talents to stay in Gale City. What do you mean by that? I like being free and unfettered here. Young master is not someone who is willing to be under others. Gather? See Fei blackmails the emperor and seizes Sang Jun. Ko Cheong shook his head and chuckled. Gale branch is the most powerful branch now, so no one dares to mess around. By the way, Miss Yu Ru has returned. Chu Li nodded. Looks like he's out of isolated cultivation. All right, you may continue with your work. Ko Cheong cupped his fists and left. Chu Li sat on the bed and began to cultivate Philip's swift thunder. As the number of times he cultivated and the time he spent cultivating Philip's swift thunder became faster and faster. Unlike other martial arts which became slower and slower as he progressed, Philip's swift thunder became faster and faster, like a rolling snowball. The beginning of finger-flicking swift thunder was difficult, and it was a great challenge for everyone. It exceeded their limits, and it was too complicated, and it consumed a lot of their spirit. It was more painful to exhaust one's spirit than one's body. The former was like the feeling of waking up with a hangover, painful and unbearable, while the latter was equivalent to heavy physical labor. Although it was painful, there was a hidden sense of comfort. They were two completely different feelings, so very few people could endure the mental pain and would rather let their bodies be exhausted. His mental strength was strong, so he could activate his circulatory cycle faster than others. Even so, after more than 100 circulatory cycles, when he opened his eyes, it was already early evening. The house was dark, but the courtyard was as bright as day. He stood up and walked out of the room. A maid served him dinner and stood by his side. The sound of footsteps could be heard again. Ko Cheong rushed in, his face full of anger. Chu Li looked up at him. What happened this time? As the deputy branch master, you must be steady. Young master, we've received news from the Great Light Peak again, Ko Cheong said. Someone has beaten us to it and snatched the patrol's position. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Which one? Deng Datong. Ko Cheong said hatefully, I didn't expect this bastard to be so shameless, taking advantage of the situation. Chu Li put down his chopsticks and pointed to the opposite side. Sit down and we'll talk. Ko Cheong sat at the other end of the stone table and sighed. I heard that this Deng Datong has already made a military pledge to avenge the previous patrol within 10 days. Otherwise, he will not be the patrol anymore. Chu Li frowned. Since he dared to say such big words, he definitely had something up his sleeves. Moreover, he was 120% confident. Otherwise, he would not have acted like this. None of the disciples of the Holy Church of Light were fools. On the contrary, they were all extraordinarily intelligent. Since Deng Datong had spoken like this, he must have found the murderer and was confident that he could kill him. Forget it then. Chu Li nodded. Young master, this is too infuriating. Ko Cheong said, This isn't fair. Chu Li could not help but laugh. How do you know it's not fair? As far as I know, the saint is very fair. Based on your contributions, young master, you should have been promoted to patrol long ago. You've been suppressing him all this time, and you've given such a good opportunity to someone else. Ko Cheong scoffed. Deng Datong was just lucky to have contributed a little in the war against the Qiu dynasty. Compared to young master, your contributions are nothing. Chu Li smiled and waved his hand. All right, since this matter has been decided, let's not bother about him. Young master, if you don't say anything this time, I'm afraid this will happen again next time. Kind people will be bullied. Ko Cheong said, Young master, you should talk to the saint about it. She can't bully people like this. Stop? Pui? Back? Bun to relieve boredom? Oysters, broken bones and ribbons? Pui? Bad dreams are easy to masturbate. Ko Cheong immediately became discouraged. Chu Li scoffed. Don't talk about this anymore. I'll be staying here for a few days, and I'll be going into isolated cultivation soon. Oh right, find out who killed the patrol. Yes, Ko Cheong said dejectedly. Chu Li waved his hand and gestured for him to leave. Ko Cheong had no choice but to leave. Chu Li pondered and looked up at the sky, then at the direction of the great light peak. He sighed in relief. He had been worried about this when he first infiltrated the Holy Church of Light. If he were to attack the Ji dynasty, even people who did not know him would feel uncomfortable. This opportunity might seem important to others, but he avoided it as if he was avoiding a snake or a scorpion. Now, it seemed that he should not be promoted anymore. Otherwise, if he became a patrol, or even an altar leader or a priest, he would have to deal with the Ji dynasty. The Ji dynasty was the Li dynasty's biggest enemy. After dinner, Chu Li was not in a hurry to leave. He walked around Gale City to let others see him. When he passed by the Phoenix Goddess brothel, he did not go in to meet Miss Yu Ru. The next morning, he returned to his bedroom from the public house. Ko Cheong was already waiting outside. He stood motionless in the middle of the courtyard as if he was meditating. Chu Li asked, "What's the matter?" Ko Cheong answered, "Young master, someone from the Great Light Peak is here." "Let her in," Chu Li said lazily. "Yes," Ko Cheong responded and quickly brought a young lady in green. Chu Li left the bedroom and went down the stairs. He fist saluted and smiled. "Senior Sister Du, Junior Brother Zhao." The young lady in green had a graceful figure and a beautiful face. She fist saluted and smiled. "I'm summoned by the saint." "All right, let's go now," Chu Li said. The two of them used their light body technique and flew out of Gale City. The young lady in green pushed her light body technique to its limit. She floated like a gust of wind, but her speed was as fast as lightning. She was twice as fast as a galloping horse and had a longer endurance. Chu Li followed her leisurely and asked casually, "Senior Sister Du, I heard that another patrol has been appointed?" "Yes." The young lady in green nodded. She was secretly surprised. Zhao Dai lived up to his reputation. He had cultivated for a short period of time, but his cultivation level was far higher than hers. Chu Li asked, "Senior Brother Deng has left the mountain after he became the patrol, right?" "Senior Brother Deng is waiting for you, Junior Brother Zhao." The young lady in green shook her head. Chu Li was stunned. "Waiting for me? I don't think I know Senior Brother Deng. We're not friends." "That's strange." The young lady in green smiled. "Senior Brother Deng seems to value you a lot. He specifically asked the saint for your help." Chu Li frowned. "What help does he need?" "To avenge Senior Brother Chang." The young lady in green said, "Senior Brother Deng has issued a military order to avenge Senior Brother Chang within 10 days. However, he has a condition. He wants you to be his assistant, Junior Brother Zhao." Chu Li asked, "Did the saint agree?" "Yes." The young lady in green nodded. Chu Li's face darkened. The young lady in green noticed his expression and quickly said, "This is an opportunity to make a contribution. Senior Brother Deng has good intentions." Chu Li shook his head with a gloomy face. The young lady in green asked, "Why? Are you unwilling, Junior Brother Zhao?" Chu Li scoffed. "If I'm going to avenge Senior Brother Chang, why should I be Senior Brother Deng's assistant? I can do it myself." Chapter 1209. It was ironic that he was asked to kill Li Hanyan. The girl in green said, "The culprit this time is said to be extremely powerful. She's known as the Ruthless Fairy. I'm afraid he won't be able to handle her by himself. You two have to work together to have a chance." "Senior Brother Deng, you're so calculative." Chu Li scoffed. The girl in green smiled and nodded. As an outsider, she also felt that Senior Brother Deng was too calculative. It was clearly the work of two people, but only one of them took it. He wanted Chu Li to help him ascend to the position of patrol. It would be fine if it was someone else, but Chu Li's position as a branch leader was a waste of his talents. With his merits, if he did not cause trouble, he would have become an altar leader. This was a good opportunity for him to become a patrol. This time, the patrol was snatched away by force. Not only did she snatch his opportunity, but she still wanted him to help her. What a coward! Then, the two stopped talking and hurried on with their journey. In the evening, the two arrived at the Great Light Peak. The girl in green was faster than Li Ruolin due to her light body technique. Chu followed her to the Divine Light Basilica. The basilica was quiet and cold. Sun Mingyue was the only one sitting behind the table reading the dossiers. Chu followed Senior Sister Du to the basilica. Senior Sister Du gestured for him to wait and left quietly. Chu stood where he was and looked up at Sun Mingyue without saying a word. Even though Sun Mingyue was in the basilica, she still wore a white veil. Only her beautiful eyes were exposed. Her phoenix eyes were so intimidating that no one dared to look at her directly. Chu did not mind and looked at her calmly. She read very quickly. In the blink of an eye, she flipped through one scroll and moved on to another. The tall stack of dossiers on the upper left corner of the table was quickly moved to the upper right corner. She finished reading the dossiers in one breath and looked down at him. Xiao Dai? Chu fist saluted. Greetings, Saint. Did Xiao Du tell you? Yes. What do you think? Ridiculous. Sun Mingyue frowned and narrowed her eyes at him coldly. Chu sneered. Saint, you agreed to his request? He's sure that he'll be able to get his revenge. Of course I agree. Sun Mingyue lightly said, Don't you want to avenge Patrol Chang? Why should I avenge him? Chu said impatiently. He was unlucky and actually died in the Ji dynasty. He's a laughingstock to the world and a disgrace to the Holy Church of Light. It doesn't matter if someone like him dies. How dare you? Sun Mingyue shouted. Chu replied disapprovingly, Besides, if you want to take revenge, then take revenge. Why are you dragging me into this? I'm currently undergoing isolated cultivation in Gale City, and it's a crucial moment that I can't afford to be delayed. Why do you have to bother me with these boring things? Can't you see that I'm in peace? Xiao Dai, you're getting more and more impudent. Sun Mingyue frowned and scoffed. Do you think that I don't dare to punish you? Chu asked, Which rule did I break? Sun Mingyue took a deep breath. Her voluptuous chest, which was covered by her loose white robe, heaved up and down violently. She said coldly, Your words are too heartless. I've never even met that senior brother Chang or that senior brother Deng, Chu said helplessly. What friendship? I won't deal with it hypocritically. Just because we're all part of the Holy Church, we're as close as a family. This is too fake. Shut up. Sun Mingyue snorted. Chu stopped and looked at her quietly. Sun Mingyue said, If you can help Deng Datong kill Li Hanyan, I'll promote you to patrol. Chu frowned and looked at her. Is there still a vacancy for patrol? You don't have to worry about that, Sun Mingyue said. Chu shook his head. I'm not going. Are you going to disobey me again? Sun Mingyue glared at him coldly. Her eyes were filled with coldness. Chu said, Saint, aren't you deliberately making things difficult for me? Killing two birds with one stone. What's so difficult about it? Sun Mingyue scoffed. If the two of you work together, that Li Hanyan will be beheaded no matter how powerful she is. Chu scoffed. The key isn't killing Li Hanyan, it's Deng Datong. What do you mean? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu scoffed. Saint, you're so smart. Do I need to explain? This time, Deng Datong was too unreasonable. If I agree, what about the next time? Everyone will want to order me around. Why should I be ordered around by them? He suggested it and I agreed. Sun Mingyue said coldly. Chu shook his head. Then forgive me for not being able to comply. Sun Mingyue stared at him coldly. Chu refused to back down and stared back at her. Their gazes seemed to be clashing in the air, like swords clashing, sparks flew. If that's the case, you should move your position as the branch leader of Gale Branch, Sun Mingyue said as she looked away. Chu said, Even if I'm expelled from the Holy Church of Light, I won't bow down. Either you work with him to kill Li Hanyan, or you remove your position as the branch leader, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, Saint, you think I'm not suitable to be the branch leader, so you want to give it to someone else, right? You know my temper, but you're purposely making things difficult for me. Why? This is a very common thing, but you're taking it as an insult. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Your thinking is too extreme. Deng Datong wants to ask you for help because your martial arts is brilliant. Everyone in the church knows about it. She was purposely making things difficult for Chu Li to test his temper. If he was not tactful enough, how could he get along with the other disciples of the Holy Church? If he was not patient enough, how could he ascend to a high position? Although the priest and altar leader needed powerful martial arts and sufficient merits, if his temperament was not good and he threw tantrums at the slightest provocation, it would be detrimental to the Holy Church. If he ascended to a high position with such a temper, he would cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, she tried every possible way to polish Chu Li and get rid of his temper. An unpolished jade was worthless. Humph! Chu Li sneered. The priest and altar leader are both highly skilled in martial arts. Why didn't he ask for their help? It's because your position is low, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, no matter how low my position is, not everyone can order me around. Yes, even I can't order you around, let alone others. Sun Mingyue said sarcastically, looks like you don't want to be the branch leader anymore. Chu Li said, Saint, if you really want to force me, I'll kill Li Hanyan before he does. Let's see if he's worthy of being a patrol. It seemed like Li Hanyan was going to suffer revenge from the Holy Church of Light. This was a good opportunity for her to make a name for herself. Although she had made a name for herself, it was only in the Great Ji dynasty. If she could fight evenly with the Holy Church of Light, it would be more beneficial to her reputation and it would be more intimidating to others. Snow Lunar Pavilion was peaceful now. This was related to his deterrence and the rise of Li Hanyan. Ruthless Fairy was famous. Sun Mingyue stared at him. Chu Li stared back at her, unwilling to be outdone. Both of them were in a stalemate again. Sun Mingyue had to suppress him no matter what. Otherwise, she would lose all her prestige, and the disciples of the Holy Church would dare to disobey her. Saint, Senior Brother Deng is outside asking for an audience. Senior Sister Du's voice was heard. Let him in. Sun Mingyue said. Her eyes were still on Chu Li. Chu Li shifted his gaze to the entrance of the basilica. A tall, thin, and handsome young man walked in slowly and gave a fist salute respectfully. Greetings, Saint. Deng Datong Zhao Dei is here. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Deng Datong gave a fist salute. He smiled at Chu Li and said, Junior Brother Zhao, please take care of me. Chu Li gave a fist salute expressionlessly. Chapter 12:10. Chu Li replied, Without my help, would Senior Brother Deng have been able to kill Li Hanyan? This. Deng Datong hesitated before shaking his head. That woman is truly powerful, or else Senior Brother Chang wouldn't have lost to her. My martial arts skills are similar to Senior Brother Chang's. I'm afraid I might not be her match. Chu Li replied, I could have killed Li Hanyan without your help, Senior Brother Deng. Deng Datong smiled disapprovingly. Although Junior Brother Zhao is powerful, you've only been cultivating for a short period of time. Li Hanyan, on the other hand, is a genius. I heard that her aptitude is not inferior to Chu Li's. She rose like a comet in just 2 years, she mustn't be underestimated. Who does Chu Li think he is? Chu Li sneered. Deng Datong became even more disapproving. Junior Brother Zhao, Du Feng of the south and Chu Li of the north. I heard that Du Feng killed Prince An of the Ji dynasty and was hunted by the Ji dynasty emperor, but he managed to escape to the Fu dynasty. Chu Li said, Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about Li Hanyan. Senior Brother Deng, you couldn't have killed Li Hanyan, but you made such a military pledge, and even tied me up to help you. You're taking advantage of the situation without risking anything. I'm impressed. He squinted at him with a sarcastic expression. You're too kind. I still need junior brother Zhao's help. Deng Datong was not ashamed and was instead very proud. Chu Li said coldly, I'm curious. Would the saint allow such a thing to happen? Sun Mingyue said, the Holy Church advocates not sticking to one pattern. Martial arts isn't the only thing that matters in making contributions, it also requires wisdom and skill. Since he has such guts and means, why would he object? That's true. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Senior brother Deng, I'll have to disappoint you. I won't help you. Deng Datong was stunned and his expression changed. Junior brother Zhao, why? Why should I help you? Chu Li said lazily, why should I help you? If you had discussed it with me before making such a decision, that would have been fine. But you acted first and reported later. You didn't even tell me and forcefully kidnapped me into the carriage. How could I agree to that? This is something that benefits everyone, why not? Deng Datong said in surprise. I've become an patrol inspector, and junior brother Zhao, you've also performed a meritorious deed. Although you can't become an patrol inspector, I'm sure you'll be able to do it next time. Chu Li said coldly, Brother Deng, if it wasn't for you this time, I would have definitely become the patrol. You stole my position and I still have to help you. How can there be such a good thing in this world? I see. Deng Datong shook his head and said, Junior brother Zhao, you should be broad-minded. You're still young, and it's not appropriate for you to suddenly become a patrol. It's not too late to train for another 2 years. Chu Li scoffed. In terms of martial arts and contributions, senior brother Deng, you're better than me in both. You still want to scheme against me and take advantage of your seniority. You're really blind. His words had already turned hostile, and he did not hesitate to mock him. Deng Datong's expression did not change as he smiled and said to Sun Mingyue, Holy Maiden, junior brother Zhao is still young and full of vigor. Sun Mingyue was calm and did not say a word. It was obvious that she wanted the two of them to discuss it among themselves. Chu Li sneered and said, Just because he's young, he should train for another 2 years. What a joke. The Holy Maiden is young. That's not what I meant. Deng Datong hurriedly waved his hand and looked at Sun Mingyue helplessly. Sun Mingyue secretly shook her head. Deng Datong's tactics were powerful and he was thick-skinned, but his eloquence was far inferior to Chu Li's. She waved her hand and said, Deng Datong, you'll have to deal with the assistant yourself. If you can convince him, do it. If you can't, find someone else. Zhao Dai isn't the only one with great martial arts in the Holy Church of Light. Deng Datong hesitated. He originally wanted to use the saint to pressure Chu Li and force him to agree. However, the saint obviously did not want to force Zhao Dai, so he was forced into a corner. He said helplessly, Junior brother Zhao, you're going to be promoted to patrol soon. As long as you make another contribution this time, it'll be your turn next time. Chu Li said, the next time I encounter a shameless person like senior brother Deng who uses despicable means, I won't be promoted to patrol. His sarcasm were tantamount to a torrent of abuse. However, Deng Datong's expression did not change. Chu Li was shocked by his shamelessness. It was rare to see such a shameless person. It seemed like he should not be underestimated. Sun Mingyue glanced at him. She knew that Chu Li was harboring killing intent. Deng Datong said, Tell me, junior brother Zhao, what do you want in exchange for your help? Chu Li scoffed and said, I won't help you with this. Be sensible and choose someone else. See you. He turned to leave after he finished speaking. Wait. Deng Datong stood in front of him. Junior brother Zhao, I'll agree to anything as long as the conditions are right. Tell me about it. Chu Li kept walking forward and was about to bump into Deng Datong. Deng Datong's expression darkened. Junior brother Zhao, why are you so proud? Are you sure that you won't need my help in the future? I won't, Chu Li said coldly. He almost touched Deng Datong's shoulder, but he did not stop. Deng Datong did not move away either. Their shoulders pressed against each other. Chu Li curled his lips in disdain and lightly shook his shoulder. Bang! Deng Datong was sent flying and crashed into a round and thick red lacquer pillar. He went limp as if he had lost his bones. He slid down the pillar and looked at Chu Li with soulless eyes. Chu Li shook his head and said, Senior brother Deng, you're too weak to even stand up to a gust of wind. With such insignificant martial arts, you actually want to go against Li Hanyan. I advise you to give up. Don't throw your life away. Zhao Dai. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Chu Li said, I didn't fight. I just bumped into him. My hands didn't move. Sun Mingyue said, You hit him so hard. Chu Li said, I was reflecting the force. I reflected back the same amount of force that senior brother Deng used. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Get lost. Chu Li was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he looked at Deng Datong. Senior brother Deng, you're so cruel. You hit him so hard but you still hurt yourself. How is it? You won't die, right? Deng Datong did not move. His blood was boiling. His body felt like water and fire were fighting. They could not merge and his body had become their battlefield. His organs felt like they were being cut by a knife. His body was limp and he could not exert any strength. He struggled to say, Junior brother Zhao, don't lie. This isn't my inner energy. Chu Li smiled. I forgot to tell you. I've cultivated the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. I can reverse yin and yang. Your inner energy is of extreme yin. I've turned it into extreme yang and sent it back. It feels good, doesn't it? You! Deng Datong pointed at him. His eyes were filled with anger. Chu Li's proud smile turned into a sneer. Next time, keep your eyes open. You can't take advantage of just anyone. Saint, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Zhao Dai, help him kill Li Hanyan, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li was stunned. He looked at her helplessly. Sun Mingyue said, Li Hanyan's martial arts is outstanding. She's especially good at killing people. She's a threat. You two should work together to kill her. Chu Li glanced at Deng Datong and suddenly nodded. Yes. He had a deep understanding of people's hearts. When he met Sun Mingyue alone, he would not save her face. He would oppose her if necessary. However, at this time, he would not be so unscrupulous. He could feel Sun Mingyue's determination. Hence, he took a step back and agreed. He was no longer as stubborn as before. Sun Mingyue secretly sighed in relief. She was worried that he would resist. She looked at Chu Li. Remember, the disciples of the church are not allowed to kill each other. If you go against this, you know the consequences. Of course. Chu Li smiled. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Go. Chu Li said, Senior brother Deng, I'll leave first. You can look for me in Gale City. Without waiting for Deng Datong's reply, Chu Li glided away. Deng Datong's face turned purple. He was in great pain. He was slightly regretful. He knew that Zhao Dai was powerful, but he did not expect him to be this powerful. Moreover, he had such a bad character. He thought it was just a rumor. Now, he knew that it was not an exaggeration. Chapter 12:11. P.S. The 42nd Alliance leader, Alan. Sun Mingyue glanced at Deng Datong and said calmly, Be careful of Zhao Dai. Yes. Deng Datong understood what she meant. He was also a little worried. Zhao Dai had the experience of killing an altar master, so he would not be lenient when it came to killing fellow disciples of the Holy Church. He originally thought that Zhao Dai was young and that he would be able to appease him with just a few words. However, it seemed like Zhao Dai did not fall for it at all. Sun Mingyue said, You've made a mistake this time. I don't think there's any hope. Deng Datong's expression changed and he forced a smile. Saint, does he really dare to disobey orders? Sun Mingyue said calmly, he's not afraid of death. Even if he doesn't dare to disobey orders, he won't obediently carry them out. I think he'll play some tricks. You should be careful. She was disdainful of Deng Datong, but as a saint, she had to be fair and would not use people based on her preferences. No matter how disdainful he was, she could not abandon him. Otherwise, it would be unfair and people would retreat, which would not benefit the Holy Church. If the Holy Church wanted to be strong, it had to be inclusive. Just like the ocean, there must be clear and muddy currents, or else it would not be far from destruction. This kind of controlling technique was the basic ability of a saintess. Deng Datong groaned in his heart and nodded reluctantly. Go, there are 8 days left. Sun Mingyue said, do you know where Li Hanyan is now? I'll find her outside Snow Lunar Pavilion. Deng Datong smiled. I just need to kill a few Snow Lunar Pavilion disciples to lure her out. Snow Lunar Pavilion is not to be trifled with. You have to be careful. Sun Mingyue frowned. They are inextricably linked to Du Feng and also have connections with Chu Li. They are under his protection. You might encounter Chu Li. That's what I'm looking for. Deng Datong smiled. Sun Mingyue saw that he did not care and frowned secretly, but she did not think too much about it. She was only responsible for giving orders. As for how her subordinates completed their tasks, she would not interfere. Everyone had their own way of doing things. Some were even deviant, but they were very effective. She waved her hand. Deng Datong struggled to stand up, cupped his fists, and respectfully retreated. As soon as he left the light palace, he stumbled down the steps. His face was so dark that water was about to drip out. He clenched his teeth, his eyes spitting fire. Even a clay doll had a temper. Moreover, he had always thought highly of himself. Chu Li had humiliated him in such a manner, but he was trying to maintain his poise in front of the saint. He did not want to ruin his image, or else he would have his face darkened again. He wanted to take care of this fellow, but he was actually unable to defeat him. His cultivation was truly astonishing. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated this fellow. Pooh! He bent down again and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face suddenly became as pale as a sheet of paper. The two auras, which had been slowly calming down, once again clashed violently. It was as if the two sides were fighting again after a pause, and the conflict was even more intense. Two opposing auras clashed in his body, and his internal organs felt like they were being stirred up. He felt like his body was no longer his own, and was being completely controlled by the two inner forces, clashing against each other without restraint. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood and sat weakly on the ground. This was the peak of the Great Light Peak. The strong wind was piercingly cold, and the cold air was like a knife. Previously, when he was full of inner energy, he had inner energy to protect his body, so the cold air could not enter his body. Now that he was suddenly weakened, the cold air took the opportunity to enter his body. In the blink of an eye, his lips were frozen and his body was numb. He was terrified. If this went on, he would probably freeze to death in 10 minutes. Senior brother Deng? Doing, a young lady in green, happened to pass by and noticed his abnormal condition. She stopped and asked with concern. She was the young lady in green who brought Chu Li back earlier. Deng Datong could no longer speak, and even the muscles on his face were frozen. He could only move his eyes, revealing a look of anxiety. Unfortunately, those who were not familiar with him could not see the meaning in his eyes. Doing looked at him suspiciously, but when she saw that he was not moving and his expression was ugly, she did not dare to touch him. This situation seemed like he was possessed. She turned her head to look around, but no one was around. Senior brother Deng, wait for a moment. I'll call someone over, the young lady in green said. Deng Datong was so anxious that he wanted to scream. If this went on, he would freeze to death. That would be a big joke. He secretly cursed Chu Li. This inner energy was really vicious, and it came wave after wave. If this went on, he would really be killed. Was Zhao De really that bold to kill him? Senior Brother Li, Doing suddenly called out in surprise. A middle-aged man fluttered over and said in a deep voice, Junior Sister Du, I want to see the saint. What are you? Senior Brother Li, quickly take a look at Senior Brother Deng. What's wrong? Doing quickly pointed at Deng Datong, who was sitting on the ground, trembling from the cold. The middle-aged man, Li Tsubing, glanced at him. Oh, he's injured. Then quickly save Senior Brother Deng, Doing quickly said. Li Tsubing said, It's better not to move him in this condition. Deng Datong cursed in his heart, Li Tsubing, how dare you leave him in the lurch? It's just a small misunderstanding. Doing asked, What should we do? Give him a spirit pill, Li Tsubing said plainly. Give him a hand. Yes, give him a spirit pill. Doing quickly nodded and took out a porcelain bottle from her sleeve. I only have this fortifying pill. Help Senior Brother Deng replenish his inner energy. Very good, Li Tsubing said. Doing stuffed the fortifying pill into Deng Datong's mouth. Deng Datong was almost frozen and could not open his mouth. Li Tsubing reached out and pried open his mouth, leaving clear fingerprints on Deng Datong's cheeks. Deng Datong's face was already numb, and he could not feel any pain. After the fortifying pill entered his body, the two inner energies, one yin and one yang, increased at the same time. They were originally from the same source, and the fortifying pill replenished both of them at the same time. It was as if he was injected with new energy, tossing and turning more violently, causing his organs to suffer more damage. Deng Datong spat out another mouthful of blood. This time, he could not open his mouth, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Senior Brother Deng. Doing was shocked and quickly turned to look at Li Tsubing. Li Tsubing frowned. It seems that his injuries are not light. I can't care anymore, let me carry him. Okay. Doing quickly agreed. Li Tsubing said, Junior Sister Du, come with us. I don't think that's necessary? Doing said. Li Tsubing shook his head. I have some grudges with this guy. If anything happens to him, I won't be able to explain myself. All right then. Doing smiled. But I believe that no matter what, Senior Brother Li will not kill Senior Brother Deng. That's true. Li Tsubing nodded. Although this old Deng is a little shameless, our grudge is not that big. As he spoke, he lifted Deng Datong by the collar and glided down. Doing followed him to a small courtyard halfway up the mountain. It was Li Tsubing's courtyard. Chapter 12:12. Li Tsubing placed Deng Datong on the bed and took a look at him before shaking his head. I didn't expect him to be so badly injured. Was he punished by the saint? That can't be. Doing hurriedly said, the saint wouldn't do it. Li Tsubing said, then who else could it be? It can't be that he was overwhelmed by anger and went berserk, right? Was he frightened by the saint? Doing asked. She had seen such situations many times. The saint's aura was too strong. Even the most powerful of heroes would be dwarfed in front of the saint. They would lose their momentum, and if they were taught a lesson by the saint, their blood would boil and they would lose control. Although it was not to the extent of injury, it was still quite frightening. Perhaps Deng Datong was even more frightened. Li Tsubing scoffed. This old Deng has no other skills, but he's audacious and thick-skinned. He's unparalleled. Could it be Junior Brother Zhao? Doing hesitated. Li Tsubing said, which Junior Brother Zhao? Junior Brother Zhao De. Doing said, Senior Brother Deng wants Junior Brother Zhao to help kill Li Hanyan and avenge Senior Brother Chang. Oh, about that. Li Tsubing curled his lips. Old Deng must have been possessed. Doing sighed and shook her head without saying anything. She did not think much of it, but since the saint did not say anything, she had nothing else to say. Li Tsubing said, that Zhao De is not to be trifled with. It's fine if old Deng flaunts his authority in front of others, but he's simply courting death by doing that to Zhao Dai. Du Ying sighed softly. The saint agreed too. Of course the saint wouldn't object directly or old Deng would be dissatisfied. Did old Deng meet with junior brother Zhao? Yes, they were both in the Divine Light Basilica. I know. It must be junior brother Zhao's doing. This time, old Deng has kicked a steel plate, ha. Li Tsubing laughed heartily. He was overjoyed and felt extremely satisfied. Finally, someone had taught him a harsh lesson. Senior brother Li, what about senior brother Deng's injury? Du Ying asked. Is it serious? He won't die. Li Tsubing laughed. Deng Datong spat out another mouthful of black blood. He was limp and unable to move. Compared to the stiffness he felt earlier, he was much better. When the two inner energies clashed in his body, the cold energy had seized the opportunity to invade his body. After returning here, the two inner energies had destroyed the cold energy, allowing him to survive. Otherwise, the cold energy would have frozen him to death. The strong winds on Great Light Peak could really freeze people to death. Is that enough, old Deng? Li Tsubing scoffed. Deng Datong's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. The purplish hue had faded from his skin, but the fingerprints on his face were even clearer. He won't die, right? Li Tsubing asked. Deng Datong shook his head and said, I won't die. His voice was dry and hoarse, like a broken gong. Li Tsubing chuckled. You were defeated by junior brother Zhao? This guy is truly vicious, Deng Datong said hatefully. His eyes seemed to be spewing fire as he gritted his teeth. Then, he felt the pain on his cheeks and glared at Li Tsubing. Li Tsubing smiled and said, I couldn't care less just now. I thought you were going to die. Do you want me to heal you? Thank you very much, Deng Datong said bluntly. Deng Datong felt Li Tsubing's pulse. Although Deng Datong was angry at Deng Datong and wanted to play tricks on him, he would not go so far as to kill Deng Datong. He was completely different from Chu Li's ruthlessness. They were brothers from the same sect. Li Tsubing scoffed and sat cross-legged behind Deng Datong. Then, he placed his palms on Deng Datong's back and began channeling. Bang! Li Tsubing suddenly flew backward and crashed into the wall. He hung there motionlessly and only a bitter smile appeared on his face. Senior brother Li? Du Ying cried out. Li Tsubing spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the bed red. He smiled bitterly and said, How powerful! What's wrong? Du Ying asked hurriedly. Li Tsubing shook his head. Pfft. Deng Datong spat out another mouthful of blood. He sighed to himself. After recovering from his injuries, he needed to replenish his blood. He had already spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Blood was vital energy. If he did not replenish it, his cultivation level would be affected. This damned Zhao Dai. Senior brother Deng, senior brother Li, what's wrong? Du Ying asked in surprise. Li Tsubing said, Old Deng's inner force is too strong. I can't compare. Deng Datong smiled bitterly. Looks like I'll have to ask for your help. Deng Datong's cultivation level was now twice as high as it used to be. If any inner force tried to invade his body, he would immediately be attacked by two different inner forces. One was yin and the other was yang. One was like water and the other was like fire. The power of the combined attack was not only superimposed, but it was also several times stronger. As such, no one in the same generation could withstand it. Li Tsubing smiled gloatingly. Which senior can help you? I don't think there's any hope. Deng Datong frowned. He was not very popular among the seniors. It seemed that none of them liked him, so he was afraid that no one could help him. If it really doesn't work, I'll ask the saint. Deng Datong scoffed. Du Ying shook her head. The saint won't help easily. Otherwise, she'll die of exhaustion. The saint will only help if his life is in danger. However, she won't cure him. She'll only stop after saving him. The saint's time is precious. Deng Datong's face turned bitter. Are we going to drag this on? This Zhao Dai is so vicious. He finally understood why Zhao Dai agreed so readily. It turned out that he knew that he would be injured and could not be cured in 8 days. How despicable! Doing sighed. Senior brother Deng, junior brother Zhao has been stumbling since he joined the sect. He looks like a fool, and everyone can take advantage of him. In fact, he hasn't taken advantage of anyone. Deng Datong sighed and shook his head. He had made a mistake this time. He thought that Zhao Dai was easy to bully. He did not expect him to turn hostile and attack him in front of the saint. However, the saint did not say anything. It was obvious that Zhao Dai knew the saint's bottom line. He was an extremely smart person. Deng Datong felt a little regretful. If he knew that Zhao Dai was such a person, he would not have used this method. He believed that Zhao Dai would not have given in if he had used other methods. However, it was too late to change now. He had lost all decorum and was injured. Junior sister Du, I can only ask for your help. Please help me report to the saint. Deng Datong sighed. Duing nodded. I'll report to the saint. Thank you very much. Deng Datong gave a fist salute. Duing turned around and left the courtyard. Li Tsubing chuckled and shook his head. Old Deng, I didn't expect this to happen to you. You have to be careful of that Zhao Dai. Deng Datong scoffed. He's vicious. Alright, stop trying to drive a wedge between us. I won't have a conflict with him. You, on the other hand, don't lose your life. Li Tsubing laughed sarcastically. Since you know that he's ruthless, why don't you be more obedient? He can crush you like an ant. Through what Chu Li had done to Deng Datong, Li Tsubing was already in awe. Such a person was not on the same level as him. He could not afford to offend him. He wouldn't dare. Deng Datong said confidently. If anything happens to me, the saint won't let him go. So what? Li Tsubing said. You're already dead. He could even survive killing an altar leader, let alone a powerless person like you. Chapter 12-13. Li Tsubing looked at him with a smile and shook his head. Clearly, he was really afraid. Deng Datong frowned. Do you think he'll really kill me? Who knows? Deng Datong sighed and shook his head. No, he won't dare. Then let's see if he dares. Don't scare me. Ha ha! Li Tsubing laughed and shook his head. Looks like you're scared. Nonsense. Wouldn't you be scared if you were him? He who has not done anything shameful is not afraid of ghosts. Li Tsubing shook his head. I think you should reflect on yourself. Don't keep thinking about taking advantage of others. It's not a long-term solution. Let's talk after we get through this. I think you should just give up. Li Tsubing shook his head. Think about it. If you force him to help you, he'll definitely fall out with you. I'm not willing to give up just like that. Deng Datong sighed. Then wait until you're dead. Li Tsubing said impatiently. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk after you get through this. Deng Datong thought about his injuries and frowned. It was impossible for him to recover on his own. If he wanted to recover as soon as possible, he had to find help from others. However, he had taken too many advantages and lost his social standing. At this crucial moment, they would not help him in his hour of need. They would only kick him when he was down. Alright, think about it yourself. I have something to do at the Divine Light Basilica. After that, I'll go down the mountain. You can stay for a while. I'll be back in 10 days. Li Tsubing stood up and chuckled. 10 days. Deng Datong was anxious when he heard that. He could not calm down. Li Tsubing laughed and left the courtyard. Deng Datong was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Li suddenly appeared at Snow Lunar Pavilion. In the waterside pavilion on the Snow Crescent Lake, Suru's waterside pavilion was still there. He appeared in Suru's waterside pavilion, not Li Hanyan's waterside pavilion directly. He was worried that something awkward would happen. After all, men and women were different. His divine mirror quickly scanned Li Hanyan's house. Li Hanyan was not there. He furrowed his brows. He did not want to enter Snow Lunar Pavilion with his true appearance. He did not want to expose his relationship with Du Feng. Li Hanyan knew her identity, so she was not afraid. Using the omniscient mirror, he soon found Li Hanyan in the martial arts field. She was practicing her swordsmanship alone in a corner. Her swordsmanship was swift and fierce, and she was filled with murderous intent. The surroundings were bustling with activity. Everyone was practicing their own martial arts, and no one dared to approach Li Hanyan. It was not because Li Hanyan's martial arts was powerful, but because her swordplay was too murderous. Anyone who got close to her would feel as if they were placed in a frigid ice cellar. Their entire body was chilled, and they were chilled from the bottom of their hearts. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. It seemed that Li Hanyan's authority in the Snow Lunar Pavilion was growing by the day. Li Hanyan sensed something and suddenly stopped her swordplay. She glanced at her waterside pavilion before sheathing her sword and drifting away. The people around her unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief and looked at her graceful back. A moment later, Li Hanyan fluttered over to Suru's waterside pavilion. She gently pushed the door open and entered. Instantly, a smile broke out on her frosty oval face. Chu Li waved his hand. Li Hanyan gracefully approached him, her faint fragrance wafting through the air. "Brother Chu?" Chu Li looked at her from head to toe. Other than becoming more beautiful and radiant, the chill around her was getting thicker and her cultivation level had improved greatly. "Brother Chu, why are you here?" Li Hanyan smiled sweetly. Chu Li shook his head. "Look at the trouble you've caused." "How did I cause trouble?" Li Hanyan scoffed. Chu Li said, "You killed a patrol from the Holy Church of Light? You know?" Li Hanyan stuck out her tongue and scoffed. "He's really blind." "Do you know how big of a mess you've caused?" Chu Li said. Li Hanyan scoffed. "It's just a patrol, what's the big deal?" "Then do you know how many patrols the Holy Church of Light has?" Chu Li shook his head. "The Holy Church of Light won't just let this go." "What are you going to do?" "I'll just deal with whatever comes my way," Li Hanyan said. Chu Li said, "They'll send 2 or more patrols. Can you handle it alone?" "Hee, I still have you, Brother Chu." Li Hanyan smiled sweetly. Chu Li broke into laughter. "No wonder you're so daring." Li Hanyan smiled. "Will they really send so many people?" "Yes," Chu Li said. "Based on their style of doing things, they won't let this go. Come on, I was just thinking of killing a few more to let everyone know that Snow Lunar Pavilion isn't a pushover." Li Hanyan smiled coldly. Chu Li frowned. "There are still people out there who are ready to make trouble?" "I've never given up." Li Hanyan sneered. "They're all bastards who won't give up until they see their coffins. I can't wait to kill them all." "You still chant scriptures every day, right?" "Of course." "Seems like it's no use, your bloodlust is getting stronger." Chu Li shook his head and pondered for a moment. "I'll pass you a scripture later, you'll chant this instead." "Brother Li, there's no contradiction between chanting scriptures and killing." Li Hanyan smiled. "I kill to save people, my heart is full of mercy." Chu Li broke into laughter and shook his head. "If you want to continue killing, you might as well go to the Fu dynasty. I heard that there are many masters in the Fu dynasty." Li Hanyan frowned. "I'm afraid I won't be able to move an inch." Chu Li said, "With your current cultivation level, it's fine to be careful. If I go to the Fu dynasty and the Holy Church of Light can't find me, will they kill our disciples?" Li Hanyan was slightly worried. Chu Li said, "Then let the whole world know and let the Holy Church of Light hunt you down in the Fu dynasty." "Why?" Li Hanyan was puzzled. She felt that Chu Li must have a deeper meaning. Chu Li said, "The Holy Church of Light is powerful, every move you make in the Ji dynasty will be heard, but it's different in the Fu dynasty. They don't have much influence in the Fu dynasty, so I can secretly help you kill them." He had a weak connection with the Holy Church of Light. Ever since Li Ruolan's death, it was as if his connection with the Holy Church of Light had been cut off. Sun Mingyue had been suppressing him to train him, but he did not appreciate it at all. Moreover, Sun Mingyue did not care about personal feelings, she only cared about the Holy Church of Light. She would do anything that was beneficial to the Holy Church of Light and would not do anything that was not beneficial. She had the mentality of an empress. Chu Li hated this the most. It was the same for the Ji dynasty's emperor, Leng Wufeng, and it was the same for other people. He wanted to beat them to the ground to vent his anger. If he could help Li Hanyan kill the disciples of the Holy Church of Light, he would be delighted. As long as he did not expose his identity, the more he killed, the better. "All right, I'll leave tomorrow," Li Hanyan said with a smile. She could almost see herself killing the Holy Church of Light's masters with a swing of her sword. Her eyes shone brighter and brighter, and she could not wait to leave now. Chu Li smiled and nodded. "If anything goes wrong, call me immediately." "Okay." Li Hanyan nodded vigorously. Chapter 12-14. P.S. Thank you forget unhappy boss for supporting us again. Only then did Chu Li feel completely relieved. "Brotherly, do you want to see my sword technique?" Li Hanyan asked hurriedly when she saw that he was about to leave. Chu Li pondered for a moment and nodded. "Your swordsmanship is already very good. You just need to continue to improve it. Moreover, as you continue to fight, your understanding will become deeper and deeper. What suits you the best is the best. The same set of swordsmanship can only be used differently by different people. You can't force things." "Yes." Li Hanyan nodded and said, "I understand, but I still want Brotherly to give me some pointers." "All right." Chu Li nodded. He reached out and grabbed Li Hanyan's wrist. He could feel the firmness and elasticity of her wrist even through the sleeve. Then, the two of them suddenly disappeared. Chu Li and him appeared on the island of the House of High Dukes. On this small island, he was the most relaxed. He did not need to be on guard against anyone. Otherwise, even if he was in King An's imperial residence, he would subconsciously be on guard. It was not Li Hanyan's first time here. She would occasionally come here to play. She glanced around and saw Xueling. She smiled at her. Xue smiled back at her. "You two can spar more," Chu Li said with a smile. Xueling said, "Sister Li's cultivation level has improved greatly. I can't compare to you." Ever since she had become a grandmaster, she no longer had an ardent desire to cultivate. She was often tied up with miscellaneous matters. Compared to cultivating, she preferred to help Chu Li with trivial matters, including the matters of the Glories Will courtyard. Li Hanyan laughed. "I don't deserve it." "Yes, Xueling has indeed been slacking off recently." Chu Li nodded. "But her foundation is pretty good. She cultivated the Crescent Cryptic, which was the most difficult to cultivate. The beginning was difficult, but the later stages were much faster. With Chu Li's help, she had built a solid foundation. Now, even if she did not focus on cultivating, her cultivation speed was not slow. In fact, it was much faster than the average person." Xueling smiled. "Master, do I still need to continue cultivating?" "Of course, there's no end to cultivation. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind." Chu Li nodded and said, "You should focus your mind. Everything else is not worth mentioning compared to cultivation." "Yes," Xueling answered crisply. The three of them appeared in an empty space in the middle of the flower bed. It was the place where they cultivated. Chu Li said, "Let's learn from each other. You'll have to figure out how to improve it yourself." "Yes," Li Hanyan answered excitedly. Chu Li had always adopted this method of imparting knowledge to her. Most of the time, it was to inspire her instead of directly imparting martial arts to her so that she could comprehend something of her own. Chu Li extended his hand and Xueling handed him a long sword. Li Hanyan unsheathed her sword and shouted, "Watch my sword!" Her body moved like a ghost and instantly appeared in front of Chu Li, the tip of her sword already stabbing towards him. Chu Li swung his sword lightly. Li Hanyan's long sword bounced off, and she stabbed again, unwilling to admit defeat. She felt that the strength of the sword wasn't great, but it was just right. It was such an exquisite strike that could turn the tide of the battle at a crucial moment. Of course, she would not let it go, so she continued to strike. Chu Li swung his sword again. Li Hanyan's sword was deflected once again. She was defenseless. Great sword technique. She let out a delicate shout and continued to strike with her sword. Her sword momentum became even faster as she wanted to see if she could break this exquisite sword. Chu Li still only used this one sword technique. No matter how Li Hanyan changed her moves, he could always deflect it easily. No matter how exquisite her moves were, she could not perform them. In one breath, she stabbed more than 20 times. Li Hanyan said helplessly, "Brother Li, is there a way to break this sword technique?" "Yes." Chu Li smiled. "There is no martial art in the world that can't be broken." "Then how do you break it?" "You should learn how to use it first before you break it. Then teach me," Li Hanyan said in a coquettish tone. "You can figure it out yourself." Chu Li shook his head. "I'll teach you. You'll only learn one move. Actually, all the moves can be used like this." Li Hanyan pondered and continued to strike. She struck more than 100 times in one breath, but she still could not get the hang of it. Chu Li patiently struck with his sword. Every strike was effortless as if it was done casually. Li Hanyan felt like she was a child swinging a sword in front of Chu Li. All the moves were full of flaws and could not withstand a single blow. This made her feel discouraged. Initially, she thought that after such a long period of hard work, she could close the gap between her and Chu Li. Now, it seemed that the gap was getting farther and farther away. Chu Li did not say a word. He only struck with his sword, hoping that she could comprehend it. If she could comprehend it, her swordsmanship would be upgraded to another level. With this energy in her sword, her power would increase tremendously. Even if she encountered someone with a stronger inner energy than her, she would still have a chance of winning. Du Ying fluttered to the divine light basilica and curtsied. Sun Mingyue glanced at her. "What's the matter? You're in such a hurry." "Saint, something bad has happened," Du Ying hurriedly said. "Tell me." Sun Mingyue put down the dossier and looked at her. "What is it?" "Senior brother Deng is badly injured," Du Ying said. Sun Mingyue frowned. "It's not normal to be injured. What's wrong? But isn't he going to kill Li Hanyan soon? Now that he's so badly injured, it's impossible for him to go." "Yes. Saint, this is a big mistake." "It's nothing, it's just a mistake. Are we just going to watch Li Hanyan get away scot-free?" Du Ying frowned. "Are we not going to avenge senior brother Chang? If Deng Datong can't do it, there'll be someone else." Sun Mingyue calmly said, "Isn't there still Zhao Dave?" "Saintess, how could junior brother Zhao help us in this situation? That might not be the case. You can't judge Zhao Dave with common sense." Sun Mingyue said, "All right, don't worry about this. Is there anything else?" "Oh, it's about junior brother Zhao. He's returned to Gale City and asked me to pass a message to you." "Say it." "Junior brother Zhao said that he's going to cripple his own martial arts." "Then let him do it." Sun Mingyue said impatiently, "I'd like to see how he's going to do it." Junior brother Zhao said that the saint won't let him live. He can't avenge himself even if he cultivates martial arts. Instead, he'll be plotted against and used. "He's better off not cultivating martial arts," Du Ying said. She showed a sympathetic expression. She felt that Deng Datong and the saint had gone too far and hurt junior brother Zhao's feelings. He's always thinking about good things and being able to avenge himself. Sun Mingyue scoffed. "If I can't avenge myself, what right does he have to do so?" "Yes." Du Ying said nothing. Sun Mingyue said, "Is Deng Datong's injury serious?" Yes, he almost lost his life. Doing nodded. It seems that senior brother Deng can't heal himself and needs help from a senior expert. Alright, I know. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Saint, do you want to help him? No need. Sun Mingyue said. Doing nodded. She did not want the saint to help, nor did she want anyone else to help. Deng Datong should bear the consequences of his own actions. He could survive a natural disaster, but he could not survive a self-inflicted one. Doing was secretly happy but pretended to be worried. Then senior brother Deng's military pledge is for nothing. That's his problem. Sun Mingyue said, we've already helped him too much. If he can't complete his task, he can't blame anyone else. Yes. Doing pursed her lips and smiled. Sun Mingyue knew what she was thinking. She shook her head and smiled. She waved her hand. Go. Chapter 12:15. Sun Mingyue shook her head and sighed. She got up from the armchair and walked down the stairs. She paced back and forth as she pondered, recalling Chu Li's every move. She could tell that Chu Li was up to no good. His inner energy was strange, but she did not expect Chu Li's cultivation level to be so high that he could injure Deng Datong. Deng Datong had only himself to blame. He had used all his tricks, but it was all for naught. Of course, she knew that Chu Li agreed so readily because he was certain that Deng Datong could not be cured. Zhao Dai was extremely arrogant and unruly. If he did not want to do something, it would be useless no matter how hard he tried to force him to do it. It was not that he did not punish him, but it did not work. The people were not afraid of death, so why should they be afraid of death? When Li Ruolin was alive, it was still fine. At least there was someone who could suppress him and make him obedient. Moreover, there were still weaknesses that could be exploited. However, once Li Ruolin died, he no longer had any weaknesses. She shook her head and sighed. She still could not come up with any good ideas. However, to men, the most important method was to seduce them with their beauty. Since ancient times, heroes had always been vulnerable to the charms of beauties. It was not just any hero, but almost all heroes could not overcome the charms of beauties. Her eyes flickered as she thought about the women in the church. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were all carefully selected. Most of the male disciples were handsome, while most of the female disciples were beautiful. It was rare to see someone as ugly as Chu Li. Heaven and earth often loved one person and focused all of their strengths on one person. Beauty and wisdom often coexisted. Those with outstanding aptitude often had outstanding looks as well. However, there were many beautiful female disciples in the church, but not many of them could move Zhao Dai. It was not because they were not beautiful enough, but because they could not enter his heart. She sighed and shook her head. It was all because of Li Ruolin. Zhao Dai's heart was completely shut down because of her death. Doing came in quietly. Saint, why are you back? Sun Mingyue asked. Doing said softly, I think senior brother Deng fainted. Although she hated Deng Datong, she was worried about him. If he really died, junior brother Zhao would be the one in trouble. He would be punished for killing a fellow disciple and might even be crippled of his martial arts. He had already killed an altar master. If he committed the same crime again, his punishment would be increased, and he might even be expelled from the Holy Church. It was too much of a loss for him to do this for Deng Datong. He fainted. Sun Mingyue frowned and said, Is his injury very serious? Yes, I'm afraid his life is in danger. Why don't you go and take a look? Doing carefully observed her expression. Sun Mingyue snorted and said, Fine, let's go and take a look. Doing smiled and quickly said, Saint, please follow me. The two of them exited the Divine Light Basilica and soon arrived at Li Tsubing's courtyard. There, they saw Deng Datong lying on the bed. Deng Datong was already unconscious on the bed, motionless, as if he was dead. His heart would only beat once, and his chest would only rise and fall after a long time. Saint, is senior brother Deng all right? Doing asked hurriedly. Yes, I won't die. Sun Mingyue snorted. That's good. Doing patted her perky chest, which trembled a little. Sun Mingyue looked at her magnificent breasts and looked at her beautiful face thoughtfully. Saint. Doing blushed under her stare. Even a woman would feel awkward being stared at there, even if she was the saint. Yes, it's nothing. I'm thinking about something. Sun Mingyue carefully looked at Du Ying and nodded to herself. Du Ying looked at her suspiciously but did not think much of it. She stared at Deng Datong and asked, Saint, are you going to treat senior brother Deng's injury? No. Sun Mingyue shook her head. That's good. Du Ying patted her perky chest again. Sun Mingyue extended her palm and gently patted Deng Datong's chest. After a few hits, her palms were flat in the air, and she gently sucked Deng Datong half a meter away. Deng Datong's body floated up and turned in the air. He floated in the air facing the sky. Sun Mingyue patted him a few more times before he floated down. Sun Mingyue retracted her palm and said calmly, Seems like you're very concerned about Zhao Daith. No. Du Ying quickly shook her head. Sun Mingyue snorted. You think I can't tell? Du Ying quickly said, No, Saint, I just can't stand senior brother Deng taking advantage of junior brother Zhao. Junior brother Zhao is too pitiful. Sun Mingyue laughed. You're the first to say that he's pitiful. Du Ying said, Senior brother Deng schemed against him and the saint suppressed him. He made so many contributions, but he could only be a branch leader in a remote place and was sent far away. Gale City is not a remote place. Sun Mingyue said, You're too biased. Du Ying smiled embarrassedly. She suddenly remembered that Gale City was also a famous city and not a remote place. However, she felt that it was very far away from Great Light Peak even though they could reach it in a day. Sun Mingyue said, Forget it. Go to Gale City again and see if it's biased. Saint, are you going to punish junior brother Zhao? Yes, he hurt Deng Dong so badly, of course he has to be punished. This can't be blamed on junior brother Zhao, right? He was the one who hurt him. How can we not blame him? Sun Mingyue said. Du Ying frowned and said, I think it's very likely that senior brother Deng did this on purpose. Junior brother Zhao didn't hurt him, but he used it as a pretext. You're quite smart. Sun Mingyue shook her head and said, Go. Yes. Du Ying nodded helplessly. Oh. Deng Datong slowly opened his eyes. Sun Mingyue glanced at him. Of course, Deng Datong's little tricks could not fool her. He had woken up a long time ago, but he kept his eyes closed and pretended to be unconscious. It was obvious that he had woken up when he heard that she wanted to punish Zhao Dave. Deng Datong said, Saint, you really can't blame junior brother Zhao. You don't blame him? Sun Mingyue's tone was light as if there was no emotion in it. Deng Datong shook his head and said, I blame myself for not being skilled enough. I'm really ashamed. As a senior brother, I can't compare to a junior brother. I deserve this. Sun Mingyue said, If that's the case, you blame yourself. Yes. Deng Datong nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue said, If you can think that way, I didn't think too highly of you. Thank you, Saint. Deng Datong gave a fist salute with difficulty. All right, since you put it that way, I won't punish him, Sun Mingyue said. Deng Datong let out a strange smile that was indescribably strange. He felt that he had shot himself in the foot again. Since the saint wanted to punish him, she should have done him a favor no matter what, no matter who pleaded on his behalf. Why wouldn't he do her a favor and show his magnanimity? He never thought that the saint would be so out of character and accept his plea. She even changed her mind and did not punish Zhao Dave. He was angry and helpless at the same time. He forced himself to smile, or else the saint would definitely see through him. Du Ying secretly pursed her lips. She could feel that the saint was teasing him. It was obvious that she was using this opportunity to knock him out of his hypocrisy. She wanted him to be more honest and not play tricks in front of the saint. Take care of yourself. Let's go doing, Sun Mingyue said. Chapter 12:16. Both of them arrived at the Divine Light Basilica. Sun Mingyue sat on the armchair and looked at her quietly. Doing, you still have to look for Zhao Dai. Saint. Doing quickly called out. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Rules are rules. Didn't I tell senior brother Deng not to punish junior brother Zhao? Doing said. That was just to fool him, Sun Mingyue said. Do you really think I'll let Zhao Dai off just because of what he said? Senior brother Deng is fine. Who said he's fine? Doing looked at her doubtfully. Sun Mingyue shook her head. Zhao Dai went too far this time. He hurt Deng Datong's foundation. Even if he recovers, he won't be able to do anything for a long time. Doing said, that can't be right? He didn't go easy on him. He was aiming to destroy Deng Datong's foundation. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Doing remained silent. It's no wonder junior brother Zhao was so ruthless. Senior brother Deng is too hateful. Alright, don't. Elvibo? Ruling Ka Fu Xieshi? Chu. Buying kidnapped Imo, yes. Doing nodded and did not say anything more. She knew that if she said anything more, the saint would turn on her. She would be asking for trouble. Sun Mingyue looked thoughtful as she watched Du Ying's graceful figure leave the Divine Light Basilica. This scene seemed familiar because she had already used the honey trap once. Back then, she had used Li Ruolin to restrain Zhao Dai. It was like using a rope to restrain a mad dragon. In the end, it was very effective. Now, she was going to use it again. Du Ying and Li Ruolin were similar in their bones, but their appearances were different. One was mature and steady, while the other was kind and had a clear distinction between love and hate. She did not hide her feelings, and it was easy for a woman like this to enter Zhao Dai's heart. Now it was up to Doing to break Zhao Dai's heart. If it worked, it would be much easier. She shook her head and sighed. In order to control this Zhao Dai, she had spent the most effort. Currently, it seemed like the results were the worst. She was still unable to control him completely. She could not command him as if she was her own arm. She needed a special method to control him. Fortunately, he was indeed worth it. His martial arts were outstanding, far surpassing that of an ordinary person. Although he was only a branch leader, his martial arts were not inferior to an altar leader or even a Fuwang. Moreover, he was exceptionally intelligent. People were often deceived by his appearance, thinking that he was a hot-headed person who did not know how to scheme and only knew how to use brute force. When Doing arrived at Gale City, Chu Li was cultivating in his own residence. Ko Chiong personally led her to the courtyard and stood there respectfully. Doing secretly looked at Ko Chiong. He was getting on in years. He looked like he was more than 100 years old. His martial arts were very powerful and his cultivation level was high. If he was in the Holy Church of Light, he would have gone to the fourth peak to enjoy his life. He would not have shown himself in public. Ever since Ko Chiong and the others established Gale Branch, their martial arts had been trained by Chu Li and their cultivation level had improved greatly. Chu Li did not do it to reward them. He just wanted to slack off. If their martial arts were weak, they would always trouble him. Only when their martial arts were strong enough would they be able to handle things on their own without him showing up. Ko Chiong stood respectfully in the small courtyard like a statue. Doing felt strange and was about to ask, but Ko Chiong put a finger to his lips, gesturing for her not to speak. Doing looked at him curiously. Ko Chiong pointed into the house and stopped moving again. Doing felt guilty and did not dare to make a sound. She could only wait with him. After a while, Chu Li's voice was heard. "What's the matter?" "Master, Miss Du from the Holy Church of Light is here," Ko Chiong answered respectfully. "Senior Sister Du, come in," Chu Li said. Ko Chiong gestured for Doing to enter. Doing shook her head and smiled. Junior brother Zhao was really good with his subordinate. Such a powerful master was so respectful to him. It was obvious that he respected him from the bottom of his heart and not just for show. She was very curious as to how junior brother Zhao did it. Ko Chiong left quietly while Du Ying went into the house. Chu Li was sitting on the bed with his legs crossed. He looked at her calmly and gave her a fist salute. Senior Sister Du, does the saint have any instructions for me? The saint has summoned you, junior brother Zhao, Du Ying said. Chu Li frowned. Again? It's not a good thing this time. Du Ying sighed. You hurt senior brother Deng too badly. The saint will punish you. Is he dead? Chu Li scoffed. Du Ying shook her head. Senior brother Deng won't die so easily. Chu Li smiled. It's good that he's not dead. It's not considered a fight. Why would the saint punish me? He almost died this time. Du Ying sighed. Senior brother Deng's injuries are getting worse. If it wasn't for the saint, it's hard to say whether he's dead or alive. I see. Chu Li nodded. Alright, I'll go with you. Du Ying sighed. Junior brother Zhao, you must hate seeing me. Every time I come, it's always bad news. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. He could see through Du Ying's thoughts. She was pure and kind. She was not the kind of person without principles. Instead, she had a clear distinction between love and hate. He liked her very much. Therefore, he did not hate her at all. In fact, he was very relaxed when he interacted with her. That's good. Du Ying smiled and said, Junior brother Zhao, is this your idea? To injure senior brother Deng so badly that he can't fulfill the military order? What do you think? Chu Li smiled. It's quite vicious. You're taking drastic measures. Du Ying said with a smile. Chu Li nodded. It seems like senior brother Deng isn't as strong as I thought. Didn't you find a master to help? Logically speaking, he should have been able to control it. Senior brother Deng isn't very popular. No master is willing to help him. Du Ying said. Chu Li got up and left the bed. Then, he left his residence with Du Ying and glided towards the Great Light Peak. The two of them chatted and laughed along the way. Unknowingly, they arrived at the Divine Light Basilica. It was already evening and the sun was setting. However, the Divine Light Basilica was unusually bright. The ice peak at the top of the Great Light Peak reflected the setting sun. Rays of sunset light shone into the Divine Light Basilica. It was exceptionally bright, which was how the Divine Light Basilica got its name. When he entered the Divine Light Basilica, Sun Mingyue was standing in a corner of the basilica. She looked at him thoughtfully. Her clear eyes scanned him from head to toe as if she was trying to see through his mind. Chu Li fist saluted. Saint, tell me, how are you going to punish me this time? Your punishment is to kill Li Hanyan. Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li frowned. I won't help him kill Li Hanyan. I know that if I kill Li Hanyan, the credit will still go to him. It'll be considered as him fulfilling the military order. That's right. If you kill Li Hanyan, you won't hurt Deng Datong. Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, then you can punish me directly. I'll keep the branch leader of Gale Branch for you. Sun Mingyue said, you can kill another person. It'll be considered as a balance. Saint, as far as I know, the Church of Light doesn't allow one's merits to be offset. No matter how great one's merits are, it can't be used to offset one's crimes. Chu Li said. Some can be offset, some can't. Sun Mingyue said, you can't generalize. You didn't cause a disaster this time, so you can offset your merit. Kill who? Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue said, Liang Yinga. Chapter 12:17. Chu Li frowned. Liang Yinga? You should know Liang Yinga from the Jing dynasty's mysterious pavilion. You've fought him before. Yes, he's very powerful, but I can't kill him. The mysterious pavilion is like the holy church of the Li dynasty to the Jing dynasty. Although the mysterious pavilion isn't a martial arts sect, it's the most powerful department in the Jing dynasty. Sun Mingyue nodded. Looks like the mysterious pavilion is in the way. Chu Li thought about it and shook his head. I thought the saint was going to avenge the 12th prince. It's not because of him. Sun Mingyue shook her head. It's because the mysterious pavilion is a great threat to the Holy Church. I see. Chu Li nodded. But we can't kill everyone who threatens the Holy Church, right? That'll be too much to kill. He's very powerful. Sun Mingyue said, that's why we have to eliminate him. Alright. I'll go look for him, but my martial arts isn't as good as his. I don't know if I can kill him. Chu Li nodded without hesitation. You really want to go? Sun Mingyue asked. She did not expect Chu Li to agree so readily. She thought he would bargain or even fall out with her. Chu Li said, as long as I don't help Deng Datong, I don't hate other things. Very well, since you're able to kill Liang Yinge, we'll write it off. I won't trouble you again this year, so you can stay in Gale City. Alright, no problem. Chu Li said. I'll send you news about Liang Yinge. Sun Mingyue said, it'll take some time to collect it. Go into isolated cultivation and improve your martial arts. Then, you'll be able to kill Liang Yinge. Yes. Chu Li nodded. Sun Mingyue looked at him with satisfaction. This was how a true subordinate should act, not as unscrupulous as before. Chu Li asked, what about senior brother Deng? Don't worry about it, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li smiled. His injury won't heal so easily. Sun Mingyue asked, what method did you use? The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture is full of mysteries. Once I've gradually mastered it, I can already unleash its power. He thinks that he has expelled the inner energy, but it's actually just turning it into his own inner energy. After a while, it'll turn back again. Chu Li shook his head. It'll keep going back and forth. Sun Mingyue said, Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. Chu Li replied, every time it spins, it'll become stronger, and his injuries will worsen as well. It's like a rolling snowball, and he won't be able to withstand it at all unless we get someone to remove his inner energy. However, I don't think it'll work without a top-notch master. It looks like we'll have to trouble you, Saint, to do it in the end. How arrogant! Sun Mingyue snorted and said, you overestimate the experts of our holy church. Any senior expert can treat this injury. Chu Li grinned and said, Saint, you can give it a try. Don't worry, you'll see soon enough, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, if he's careless, he'll really die, but he won't die for a while. In the later stages, the relapse will become more severe, and it won't go away. When that time comes, it'll be almost impossible to treat him completely. Sun Mingyue shook her head and said, you're really vicious. Ha ha. Chu Li laughed proudly. If he's heartless, I'll be unjust. Other than the saint, no one else dares to scheme against me like this. Go. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Chu Li fist saluted and turned to leave. Doing secretly sighed in relief. She was worried that Chu Li would go back to his old ways and go against the saint. That would not end well. Doing, wait up. Sun Mingyue called out to Doing, who wanted to follow him out. Doing turned her head back reluctantly, and when she turned her head again, Chu Li had already left the Divine Light Basilica. Sun Mingyue said, go to Gale City in a few days and send him some dossiers. Yes. Doing smiled. Sun Mingyue looked at her graceful silhouette as she left curiously. Zhao Dai was so ugly. Although he looked more pleasing to the eye than before, perhaps it was because of the technique he cultivated, he was still ugly compared to the people around him. She did not expect Doing to not care, and was even willing to get close to him. This was an anomaly among the many disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Back then, Li Ruolin was only following orders to get close to Zhao Dai. After spending a long time with him, she saw Zhao Dai's nature and did not mind so much. Chu Li returned to the public house's island again. Li Hanyan was still wielding her long sword, pondering the essence of Chu Li's previous attack. The lanterns were first lit, and the island was brightly lit as if it was daytime. The lake outside reflected the bright moon, and the moonlight on the lake merged with the waves. Li Hanyan's oval face was as fair as jade under the light, and she looked cold and charming. Chu Li smiled. Have you thought it through? Li Hanyan shook her head. Am I too stupid? Oh! Chu Li smiled. You still have such thoughts? I always feel that I'm stupid. I haven't understood anything after so long. If you can understand it in a day, I'll think that I'm stupid. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Continue pondering. Yes. Li Hanyan smiled. These few words restored her confidence, and she no longer doubted herself. She had been thinking for a day but still could not figure it out. It was a little frustrating. It would be good if she could understand something, but there were no clues or flashes of inspiration. 5 days later, Chu Li met Du Ying in Gale City. She was carrying 2 big bags that were filled to the brim with dossiers. Chu Li smiled. He had always wanted to kill Liang Yinge, but he could not find his weakness. He did not know his origin, so he had no way to restrain him. Now that he had this information, there was a glimmer of hope to deal with Liang Yinge. If he still could not deal with him, he could only cultivate and increase his cultivation level before killing him. Du Ying smiled. Junior brother Zhao, I'll stay here for 2 days. If there's anything you don't understand or want to understand, I'll write it down and bring it back to the saint. It won't take too long. I'll read it right away. Chu Li nodded. When he saw Du Ying again, he vaguely understood Sun Mingyue's intention. Sun Mingyue wanted Du Ying to become the second Li Ruolin, so that she could restrain the Zhao Daith that he disguised as. He shook his head secretly. He was not tempted. Falling in love in the Holy Church of Light was simply asking for trouble. Although Du Ying was good, he could not be too close to her. He then flipped through the dossiers. Du Ying did not say anything else. She sat at the side and watched Chu Li quickly flip through the dossiers. He read at the same speed as the saint, Sun Mingyue. In the blink of an eye, he finished reading one scroll, then the next. He finished reading the 2 big bags of dossiers in half a day. After reading Liang Yinge's dossiers, Chu Li frowned. Liang Yinge's origin was very mysterious, and so was his master. It was said that the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial was an ancient antique study with amazing power. Moreover, the conditions to cultivate it were very harsh. He was a genius to be able to cultivate it. Such a person was favored by God, so it was not easy to kill him. Although there were many dossiers, there was still no information about his origin, so they could not find out who he was. They only recorded some of the things he did, which showed his character. When Du Ying saw Chu Li's serious expression, she hurriedly said, Junior brother Zhao, is it not enough? Chu Li shook his head. It's useless. Then what should we do? Du Ying frowned. Can you still complete the task given by the saint? Chapter 12:18. Is Liang Yinge really that powerful? Du Ying asked. Chu Li nodded. Very powerful. He almost killed me the last time. It's very difficult to deal with him. What should we do then? Du Ying frowned. The saint knows how difficult it is to deal with him. She's just asking me to try. Chu Li shook his head. I'll try to kill him again. Although Liang Yinge had put him in a difficult position the last time, it was mostly because of the 12th prince, Sun Yuqing. Without Sun Yuqing, he would not have been in such a difficult position. Although they had tried again and failed, it was not impossible to find a way. It was not necessary to be stronger than the other party in martial arts to kill. Junior brother Zhao, you'll succeed. Du Ying smiled. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. He closed his eyes and replayed the dossier in his mind. He analyzed it one by one to find his weakness, his style of doing things, and his character. After a while, he did not find anything. He could only conclude that Liang Yinge must have an extremely powerful master. His master was very mysterious. Senior Sister Du, go back and tell the saint that I want to know about Liang Yinge's master, Chu Li said. Okay. Du Ying asked, anything else? Chu Li shook his head. Find out more about Zhu Liang. He's an enlightened master from 1,000 years ago. Okay. Duing left the courtyard and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chu Li watched her leave. He got up and paced in the courtyard. Ever since he left the secret guardian's hall, he no longer had any reason to stay in the Holy Church of Light. There was no need for him to hide anymore, but he was reluctant to give up this identity. Firstly, he was unwilling to give up. As a man, he had always been bullied by Sun Mingyue. He felt aggrieved that he could not stand up for himself, so he wanted to find a chance to take Sun Mingyue down. As for destroying the Holy Church of Light, he had no motivation to do so. When he thought that everything was under the control of the Fu dynasty, he could not bring himself to do it. Moreover, the Holy Church of Light was more powerful than the Secret Guardian's Hall and even the Tempest Temple. He could use their power to do things that ordinary people could not imagine. Killing Liang Yinge this time was an example. He had always wanted to kill Liang Yinge, but he could not. With the help of the Holy Church of Light, there might be a glimmer of hope. As long as they killed Liang Yinge and avenged King Ping, it would pave the way for Suan. Whether or not Suan would have a chance in the future depended on whether or not Suan was the emperor. If Crown Prince Ling Jinghua did not make any mistakes, Suan would not have a chance at all. However, he believed that Ling Jinghua would make mistakes. The current Ling Jinghua was different from the Ling Jinghua before he became the Crown Prince. His temperament had changed, so it was easier for him to make mistakes. There would be a glimmer of hope if Ling Jinghua made a mistake, but there would be no hope if he could not kill Liang Yinge. Duing returned to Gale City 7 days later and looked for Chu Li. In these 7 days, Li Hanyan had already mastered that sword technique, the art of pushing 1,000 caddies with little effort. Chu Li was in awe of her level of comprehension. She was indeed a natural swordsman. This was what he comprehended when he was cultivating the great heaven-deriving sword and Philip's swift thunder. It was the essence of a flash of inspiration. He did not expect Li Hanyan to be able to master it in just 10 days. After sending Li Hanyan back to Snow Lunar Pavilion, he returned to Gale City and waited for Du Ying's return. Chu Li looked at the dossier and frowned. He did not say a word. The two of them were in his bedroom. Du Ying sat on a stool and stared at him without blinking. When she saw his frown, she quickly asked, "Is it still useless?" Chu Li shook his head. "I've gained something this time. I didn't expect Zhu Liang and Liang Yinge to be related." When he said that he wanted to investigate Liang Yinge's master and Zhu Liang, he did not think that the two were related. He only wanted to use Sun Mingyue's power to investigate Zhu Liang and see if he could find more clues to obtain the spirit crane technique. He did not expect that there would be a relationship between them. From the information obtained by the Holy Church of Light, the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial that Liang Yinge cultivated was from Zhu Liang's wife's lineage. It seemed that finding the spirit crane technique that Zhu Liang hid was on Liang Yinge. Du Ying asked, "Are you going to take action?" Chu Li nodded. "Senior Sister Du, go back and tell the saint that I'll leave immediately." "Then be careful," Du Ying said softly. Chu Li smiled. "Don't worry, I'll run if I can't beat them." Du Ying nodded. At the foot of Ascending Dragon Mountain, Liang Yinge stood under a tree and looked up at the mountain. Behind him were 4 gray-robed elders who looked gloomy. The 4 gray-robed elders had high cultivation levels and were only slightly weaker than Liang Yinge. They stood behind Liang Yinge and shook their heads helplessly. "The formation can't be broken?" "It can't be broken." One of the gray-robed elders shook his head and said helplessly, "Pavilion Master, this vast cold palace is quite strange." "It's not surprising that the Heavenly King Palm has such abilities," Liang Yinge said. He wore a green robe and looked as handsome as jade as he looked at Ascending Dragon Mountain. The Ascending Dragon Mountain was currently shrouded in fog and could not be seen clearly. With his eyesight, he could see the peak of the mountain no matter how high it was. However, it was shrouded in fog and could not be seen. He knew that the vast cold palace was in this fog, and could not be seen because it was shrouded in a formation. Relying on this formation, the vast cold palace was aloof and independent. They were not strong, but they were arrogant and caused no small amount of trouble. This was especially so for the profound pavilion, which made him extremely angry. He wanted to remove this nail and make an example out of it. However, it was not easy to deal with the vast cold palace. The huge ascending dragon mountain was not only a mountain but also a mountain range. It was impossible to seal the entire mountain range and prevent people from coming out. Moreover, ascending Dragon Mountain was rich in resources. Even if they did not come out, they would not have to worry about food and clothing. It was said that there were not many people in the vast cold palace, so their consumption was very small. It was impossible to use the method of trapping the city. He knew a little about formations, and the Zheng dynasty also had people who were proficient in formations. He sent the most powerful formation masters to break the vast cold palace's formation, but after 10 days there was no result. Another thin gray-robed elder said, "Pavilion master, if it's really impossible, let's burn the mountain." Liang Yinga glanced at him and shook his head. The other 3 gray-robed elders shook their heads. No, burning the mountain is too harmful, and it may not be effective. The formation master was so powerful, how could he not be prepared for this? I don't believe that there's anything we can do under fire. The thin gray-robed elder scoffed. Liang Yinga said, "Under a formation, burning is useless. You guys should learn about formations. Even if you can't learn, you should at least understand some basic knowledge." Yes. The 4 of them lowered their heads and agreed. Liang Yinga waved his hand and continued to stare at ascending Dragon Mountain. The other 4 shook their heads secretly. It was useless no matter how they looked at it. If they could not break it, they could not break it. According to the 2 formation masters, this formation was a strange formation that was integrated with the mountain range. For 1,000 years, it had been integrated step by step and became closer, which was why it had such power. No matter how powerful they were, they could not do anything against such a formation. "You guys go first, I'll take a look myself." Liang Yinga waved his hand. The 4 of them fist saluted and fluttered away. They wanted to enter ascending Dragon Mountain again to see if they would get lost again. As soon as the 4 of them left, Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of Liang Yinga. Chapter 12:19. Chu Li said, "Watch my blade." 2 flying blades were shot out in an instant. The blade flashed and appeared in front of him, giving him almost no time to react. Liang Yinga's senses were sharp. As the blade flashed past, it seemed like he could not avoid it. The flying blades passed through without any hindrance, leaving only an empty shadow. Chu Li frowned. The power of the light blade was strong, but it was useless against Liang Yinga. Liang Yinga's senses were too sharp. As soon as Chu Li thought about it, Liang Yinga could sense his killing intent and instantly dodge it. No matter how many blades Liang Yinga shot out, it was futile. It was hopeless. The only way to restrain his senses was to use the life and death scripture to restrain his killing intent. Even so, Liang Yinga's light body technique was outstanding. Chu Li had always been successful with his top-notch light body technique and light blade, but it was like meeting his nemesis when he met Liang Yinga. Liang Yinga's antique skills were restrained by him. More importantly, the only way to defeat him was to have a higher cultivation level, but Liang Yinga's cultivation level was higher. As a result, Liang Yinga was at a complete disadvantage and felt extremely uncomfortable. At this time, he had transformed into Zhao Daif and needed to hide his martial arts. He only showed the Great Light Scripture and the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. His cultivation level could not be completely exposed either, so it was weaker than his original cultivation level. As a result, he could not do anything to Liang Yinga. It was just the light blade and the great light fist. To Liang Yinge, they were just harassment. Chu Li had the same intention. After he shot out 20 blades, he suddenly stopped and turned to leave. Liang Yinge scoffed and appeared in front of Chu Li in a flash. Chu Li swayed swiftly and moved a foot to the side to avoid his 9 kills palm energy. While Liang Yinge frowned, Chu Li was like a breeze. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in a forest and disappeared. Liang Yinge did not give up and directly chased into the forest. Chi! Chi! 2 blade flashes instantly shot out. Liang Yinge felt that something was wrong and had already dodged. The blade flashes hit the pine tree behind him. Bang! The pine tree exploded. Liang Yinge and Chu Li had already disappeared. Only the pine tree was cut in the middle and slowly fell. The two of them chased each other in the forest. Soon enough, Liang Yinge realized that he had lost his way and was trapped in a formation. The Ascending Dragon Mountains formation was no joke. He suddenly stopped and frowned as he looked around. He floated on the treetop. The vast expanse of green was like an ocean. No matter how he ran, it was useless. It was as if he was in the same place. He also understood formations, so he knew that it was extremely difficult to break out of a formation. The more he wandered, the more hopeless it would be. He stood there quietly and observed his surroundings, carefully sensing everything: the flow of the wind, the change in temperature, the humidity of the ground, and the direction of the vegetation. After a while, he still had no clue and gradually became restless. Chi! Suddenly, a whistling sound rang in his ear. He sensed that the saber light had appeared in front of him, but he did not notice its existence. His body had already subconsciously moved to the side, avoiding the saber light that appeared from behind, which made him break out in a cold sweat. The saber light flashed again. He sensed it coming from the left, but it appeared on the right. He knew that his senses had been disrupted by the formation, and it was now the complete opposite. This might be a heaven and earth reversal formation. The next time the saber light flashed, he deliberately avoided it in the opposite direction of his senses, but he did not expect his senses to be right this time. There was no need to go in the opposite direction, so the saber light shone on him. The saber light was too fast, and he could only avoid it by relying on his senses. Once he saw the saber light and tried to avoid it, it was already too late. No matter how good his light body technique was, it was useless, so he could only urge his force to meet the saber light. Chi! The saber light pierced through his right palm without hesitation. He snorted angrily, and his face was covered with frost. His body suddenly sped up, and he pounced in the direction of the saber light. Chi! The saber light flashed again. He felt that he could no longer rely on experience. The saber light appeared in front of him, but he did not treat it as if it was in front of him or behind him. He tried his best to jump up, thinking that he would be able to avoid it. Chi! As soon as he jumped into the air, he saw that the saber light was already in front of him. He cursed and could only helplessly push out his right palm again. His palm was as fast as lightning, but he could only block it for a moment. The flying saber instantly pierced through his palm and shot toward his heart. However, with his right palm blocking it, it was only for a moment, but it was enough for him to move away. Pft! He spat out an arrow of blood in the air. After the saber penetrated his body, it directly shattered his internal organs, and he was instantly severely injured. A strange force kept colliding in his body, again and again, causing him to be injured again and again. You! Liang Yinge snorted angrily. Good move. He also knew formations, but now he knew that he still needed to improve his formations, or he would not have been in such a predicament today. He was seriously injured now, and he could originally suppress this ugly guy to the point that he could not breathe, but with the help of the formation, he was the one who suppressed him instead. Unfortunately, he could not escape, and could only drag his injured body to entangle with him. His life was uncertain. He swore that he would concentrate on studying formations after he returned. Chu laughed out loud. Liang Yinge, surrender. What's the benefit of surrendering? Liang Yinge snorted coldly. I'm already being lenient by not killing you, but I didn't think that you would dare to come here to die. Chu laughed. Think about it yourself. You're so smart, you must have thought of it. The Holy Church of Light. Liang Yinge sneered. He was friends with Sun Mingyue because they had a common enemy, but he did not expect Sun Mingyue to take the initiative and attack him first. Chu said, the saint might like you, so she wants to kill you. Ha! Liang Yinge laughed out loud. Like me? Chu nodded. There are only a few people in the world who can catch the saint's eye. The rest of the men are too weak. Do you think it's impossible for the saint to like you? Impossible. Liang Yinge scoffed. Her martial arts is too strong, and her state of mind is transcendent. It's impossible for her to have any personal feelings. She's at the age of first awakening in love, how can she not have personal feelings? Chu shook his head and laughed. You're the one who deifies the saint too much. I'm not deified at all, you'll know in the future. Liang Yinge shook his head. Alright, you should go. It's time for you to go. Chu chuckled and said, You're going to die today. Will your martial arts be lost? Liang Yinge frowned and remained silent. He had only one disciple for several generations, and each generation's successor was extremely brilliant and far surpassed their peers, so it had not been lost. If it was to be lost in his generation, it would be a shame to his master, and he would not be able to face the Grandmaster even if he ascended to the Outland. At this thought, he took a deep breath and shook his head. He could not be shaken by this ugly fellow, and it was more important to find a way to escape. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Chu hid in the formation and watched him gradually weaken, but he did not relax. A person like Liang Yinge was not easy to kill, and he had more than one trump card. Chu knew very well that he was not in a hurry to escape, and instead, he wanted to take advantage of his weakness and find a chance to give him another hard blow. Liang Yinge slowly fell and did not move as if he had lost his strength. His whole body was weak, and he did not have an imposing manner at all. Chu suddenly shot out another knife. TSS. The knife flashed, and Liang Yinge suddenly pounced on Chu. However, Chu did not move. Liang Yinge raised his bony right palm again, and a faint light flashed. The flying knife that was stuck in his palm did not penetrate it, and he took the flying knife and shot in Chu's direction. Chu did not move, and Liang Yinge turned away 2 meters away from him. Chu secretly sighed in relief, and was shocked by Liang Yinge's strength. Although he could not find Chu through the formation, he could rely on other senses to distinguish the truth from the chaos. This was extremely difficult, and it was truly amazing. Chapter 12:20. If Liang Yinge knew formations and could find him, it would not be a big deal. However, Liang Yinge was not relying on formations, so it was extremely rare, which made Chu admire him very much. After one time, Liang Yinge was deeply encouraged and felt that this trick was useful. He did not move as if he had become one with the wind, and felt Chu's position through the wind. Chu also did not move and did not use the flying blade in case Liang Yinge sensed him. If he did not use the flying blade, he would not have any flaws. Once he used the flying blade, it would be a flaw that was very likely to be caught. Chu could only rely on the formation now. This formation was extremely powerful, and he felt that it would not be easy for Liang Yinge to break it. He suddenly disappeared in a flash and reappeared 1 meter away from Liang Yinge. He could almost reach him if he stretched out his hand. However, Liang Yinge could not sense him. This was the beauty of the formation. The reason why the formation had its current status was because it was the mystery of the operation of heaven and earth. It was a supreme existence that was far above humans. When humans did not exist, the formation already existed. It was naturally formed by heaven and earth, and humans slowly discovered the subtlety of the formation and used it. Liang Yinge frowned. He faintly felt that something was wrong, but he could not sense it. There was a huge crisis hidden deep in his heart, reminding him to leave quickly and run as far as possible. Unfortunately, he was trapped by the formation and lost his way. It was useless no matter how he ran. At a glance, he was in a vast green sea with no end in sight. He even lost his sense of direction, as if he could not get out of this place. He suddenly dodged to the side, and Chu Li's blade happened to appear again. This early dodge allowed him to avoid his vital points, but he was shot in the shoulder. His movements paused for a moment and slowed down. Chu Li did not fall for it. He did not continue to attack, but instead took a step back. At this moment, Liang Yinge's left palm had already arrived, and it almost hit Chu Li. The sharp force of the palm wind brushed past the tip of Chu Li's nose. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. This Liang Yinge was really more cunning than a fox, and he almost fell for it. Fortunately, he did not have the treasured clothing on him, or else it would be more difficult to deal with him. Liang Yinge cursed in his heart. This guy was even more cunning than a fox. He was so close to catching him, so close every time. If it was someone else, even with the help of the formation, he would still be able to find a way to catch them and turn defense into offense, turning defeat into victory. After that, Chu Li followed the same pattern. He would change his position with each slash and suddenly shoot out a blade without Liang Yinge noticing. In just a short while, he had already shot out 4 slashes, and Liang Yinge had also suffered 4 slashes. Although he only bled a little, he was still wounded and his vitality was damaged. However, no matter how much his vitality was damaged, it was not a serious injury. He was not as weak as he appeared to be. Chu Li could see that he was pretending to be weak and was looking for an opportunity to turn defeat into victory. Chu Li would rather have nothing to gain than to not make any mistake. Both of them were fighting mentally and physically, and they were willing to go to any lengths. Both of them felt that the slightest mistake would result in death. Therefore, both of them felt like they were walking on a tightrope, their bodies tensed up. Chu Li originally wanted to drag it out a little longer so that Liang Yinge's injuries would worsen. However, he did not expect Liang Yinge's heart technique to be so amazing that he was slowly recovering from his injuries. His body was not inferior to his own heavenly demon body. Seeing that his plan had failed, he had no choice but to speed up. One slash after another, he wanted to finish off Liang Yinge as soon as possible. Pavilion Master! A long shout came from afar. Liang Yinge was overjoyed and let out a long roar. Then, a long roar came from afar. The roar was like thunder. Chu Li sighed. The heavens really did not let Liang Yinge die. The omniscient mirror was affected by the formation and could not see the entire ascending dragon mountain, but it saw 4 elders slowly approaching. With their speed, they would only need 10 minutes to arrive. 2 of the gray-robed elders had a profound cultivation level, while the other 2 were only innate masters. Chu Li could see that these 2 were formation masters. The 2 of them cooperated. One kept chanting while the other kept deducing. The 2 of them cooperated and walked forward step by step. Their speed was very slow, but no matter how slow they were, as long as they did not stop, they would eventually arrive. They were only about 500 meters away from the 4 of them. Without the formation in the way, they could arrive in an instant. Under the formation, they moved slowly step by step, but their steps were big and faster than ordinary people. It was enough for them to arrive in 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, he frowned and shook his head. He was afraid that he would not be able to defeat Liang Yinge. Liang Yinge had a strong physique. It was probably because the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial had a body-refining effect. Liang Yinge's martial arts also had the ability to prevent prying, so the omniscient mirror could not see his heart. Chu Li had always wanted to defeat Liang Yinge. After crippling his martial arts, he could use the omniscient mirror to read Liang Ying's heart, find out about Zhu Liang, and find the spirit crane technique. Moreover, even without the spirit crane technique, he wanted to kill Liang Ying and avenge King Ping so that King Ping would support Suan and prepare for the future fight for the throne. TSS, TSS, TSS. He shot out 4 flying knives in one breath, and the flying knives on him were completely used up. He usually kept the flying knives after shooting out, but this time, he did not. The knives were stained with Liang Ying's blood, and Liang Ying might be able to sense the flying knives through the blood. If Chu Li had this ability, Liang Ying might have it too. He flashed into the formation 1 step ahead, and Liang Ying missed again. Chu Li had already appeared 200 feet away. Then, like a stream of light, he instantly appeared beside the 2 purple-robed elders. He hid in the formation and avoided the senses of the 2 gray-robed elders. 2 energy blades shot toward the backs of the 2 purple-robed elders. TSS. TSS. The energy blades were no different from real knives. There was only a difference when it was used against masters like Liang Ying. It did not matter to the purple-robed elders as they were killed in one blow. Bam bam! The 2 purple-robed elders flew out. Xiao Gu, Xiao Wei. The 2 gray-robed elders cried out. They looked about the same age, but in fact, the 2 purple-robed elders were a generation younger than them. Their martial arts cultivation level was poor, and their mental energy consumption was too high. One of the gray-robed elders went to save them, while the other stood vigilantly at the side, ready to make a move at any time. Chu Li shook his head in disappointment and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in a house in the High Duke's public house. The house was full of crystal-clear flying knives. Usually, the High Duke's public house's skilled craftsmen meticulously forged them, and each knife was abnormally sharp. The next moment, Chu Li appeared in the formation again at his original position. Among all the formations, this was the only place where he could freely pass through. His god's limbs could not pass through the other places. Formations were in existence of a higher level than divine power. Of course, it required an ancient formation that was integrated with heaven and earth. Ordinary formations would definitely not work. Moreover, in today's world, the inheritance of formations was getting more and more difficult, and its power was getting weaker. There were formations that could stop his god's limbs, but there were not many of them. It was extremely difficult to set them up. As Chu Li expected, the 2 purple-robed elders had already woken up. They were wearing treasured clothes, so their injuries were not fatal. It seemed that Liang Ying's treasured clothes were with one of them. Chapter 12:21. As long as he killed these 2 formation masters, it would be difficult for Liang Ying to come out, and the 2 gray-robed elders would not be able to come out either. It would be the most worry-free way to get rid of them without any bloodshed. The 2 gray-robed elders were already prepared. They stood in front of the 2 purple-robed elders and guarded them. Their eyes were as cold as a sword as they were ready to attack at any time. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Usually, their defense would be very tight, but now that they were in a formation, the effect was weak. He flashed and appeared beside the 2 gray-robed elders again, then shot both of his hands. The 2 flying blades were like 2 rays of light that drilled into the purple-robed elders' temples. They entered from one side and came out from the other side, then shot into the pine tree next to them with blood. He condensed his inner energy into the 2 blades. When the 2 blades were shot out, they missed and his body felt weak. Fortunately, the 2 blades were successful. The 2 purple-robed formation masters could not be more dead. He let out a long sigh of relief. Ah! The 2 gray-robed elders roared at the sky. Chu Li had disappeared. A grandmaster's most sensitive instinct was to sense danger. If there was no danger, this unimaginable intuition would not be stimulated. Chu Li used this weakness to kill the 2 purple-robed elders before the 2 gray-robed elders could react and calmly retreated. Ah! The two gray-robed elders roared and rushed in the direction where Chu Li was previously. The two formation masters were national treasures and the most precious talents in the Jing kingdom. The pavilion master had spent a lot of favors to invite them and sent them to protect him at all times, but he did not expect there to be a mistake. If the injury was elsewhere, they could be saved. They had life-saving spirit pills, so as long as their souls were not scattered, they could be saved. However, if the head was injured, the spirit pills would be useless. They only had anger now, a anger that could burn everything. They wanted to cut the murderer into pieces. Driven by anger, they desperately waved their palms and fists. Wherever they passed, the grass and trees were blown away. They wanted to destroy everything. They faintly felt that Chu Li was not far away. As long as they sped up, they could catch up with him. Obviously, this guy could not run freely in the formation. He could only move slowly step by step, just like they did before. However, no matter how hard they chased, they were always one step away from seeing Chu Li's shadow. When they were almost done venting their anger, they realized that the scene in front of them was very familiar. The ground was in a mess as if there had been a tornado. They looked at each other, turned around and came back. It was useless to use brute force to break the formation. The two formation masters who died had said that they had also tried it, and this time was no exception. Looking at the messy surroundings, their hearts were filled with anger again, and they wanted to destroy everything. "What should we do?" A gray-robed old man sighed and shook his head. The other gray-robed old man thought for a moment, then pursed his lips and let out a long whistle. Another long howl rang out in the distance. "Good idea. Let's look for the pavilion master." He also let out a long howl. Another long howl came from afar. Liang Yinga kept howling, and each howl was louder than the last. He did not seem to be heard at all. Chu Li stood still in the distance. He wanted to see if they could break out of the array without the help of an array master. The whistling sounds rose and fell in succession, one after another, echoing each other as if they were getting closer and closer to each other. But after walking for a quarter of an hour, the whistling sound suddenly became distant. Both sides stopped moving and wanted to retreat, knowing that they had gone the wrong way. When they looked back, their expressions changed. The road had changed completely, and they did not know how to retreat. They even suspected that they had walked past that place. They braced themselves and took 2 steps back. Then, they let out another long howl. The distance became further, and they did not know what to do. Chu Li secretly shook his head. If a formation was so easy to break through, it would have been broken long ago. A person's 5 senses were the most useless and the biggest weakness of a formation. A formation affected people through the 5 senses, thus causing them to fall into chaos and mistakes. Previously, Liang Yinga's perception of himself was beyond the 5 senses, and it was similar to a 6th sense. Chu Li thought about it, but he still did not make a move. Liang Yinga was too powerful. Once he made a move, he might be discovered and caught up to him. It was better not to make a move. He disappeared in a flash and returned to the Tianshu courtyard in King An's imperial residence. Xiao Shi was reading in the courtyard. When she saw him, she put down the book and glanced at him. "Did you know that Lu Yurong really became the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall?" Chu Li said. "She got what she wanted. Congratulations. You're such a good person." Xiao Shi scoffed. She was dressed in white, and her face was as white as jade. Her eyes were deep like the abyss, and her aura was irresistible. Chu Li smiled. She became the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. She won't touch King An's imperial residence. That's not necessarily true. Xiao Shi pouted. She's going to attack the imperial residence. Do you know which imperial residence will be the first to suffer? Chu Li thought about it. King Cheng's imperial residence? Xiao Shi shook her head. Chu Li said, "Could it be King Ping's imperial residence?" Xiao Shi still shook her head. Chu Li frowned. There are other imperial residences that are worth attacking? Prince Kang's imperial residence, Xiao Shi said. Chu Li was surprised. She's really bold, Xiao Shi scoffed. I heard that there are disciples from the Holy Church of Light hiding in Prince Kang's imperial residence. She got the news and brought people to break into the imperial residence. She killed 2 masters from the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned. Will the Crown Prince be willing to do that? She's the Crown Prince's confidant. She represents the Crown Prince's attitude. Can the Crown Prince not tolerate Prince Kong? Who knows? Xiao Shi sneered. She's now riding on the crest of success, full of mettle. It's not easy to be the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. It's easy to get into trouble. You won't last long if you're not capable, Chu Li said. Lu Yurong might be chased away soon. Xiao Shi instantly smiled. She liked what Chu Li said. However, she did not mean what she said. She's very capable. Let's see if she can suppress Prince Kong this time. Prince Kong. Chu Li frowned. He had a good relationship with Prince Kong. Back then, he was able to return to Fairy's capital from the Imperial Mausoleum because of Prince Kong and the others pleading. It would be difficult to change the Emperor's mind on his own. The Ji Dynasty's Emperor Ling Wufeng was a strong-willed man. Once he spoke, he would persist to the end even if he was wrong. The dignity of the royal family was more important than anything else. Xiao Shi said, You're close to Prince Kong. Do you think Lu Yurong is doing this to deal with you? Me? Chu Li pondered. He did not deny it immediately. It was a possibility. His relationship with Lu Yurong was complicated. They went from enemies to friends. They trusted each other but did not trust each other. They worked together but fought against each other. If Lu Yurong was confident that she could win, she would choose to fight without hesitation. Xiao Shi scoffed. You have to be careful. Lu Yurong is not the same as before. Don't forget that she still has a weakness. Mayor Courtyard. Chu Li slowly nodded. As they spoke, footsteps from outside came from the chief. The chief steward's footsteps were heard. Wang Fei, there's an invitation from Prince Kang's Fu outside. Come in, Xiao Shi said. The chief carefully entered the courtyard and bowed respectfully to Xiao Shi and Chu Li. It's from Prince Kong, head chief. Xiao Shi looked at Chu Li. Chu Li extended his hand. The chief quickly presented it with both hands. Chu Li opened it and nodded. Is it at the Verdant Cloud brothel again? Xiao Shi asked. Chu Li shook his head. It's at the imperial residence. That's good. Xiao Shi said. It's probably to complain to you. Chapter 12:22. The chief tactfully retreated. Chu Li and Xiao Shi chatted for a while until the sun set. Chu Li appeared on ascending Dragon Mountain again to see what happened to Liang Yinge and the others. Without a formation master, it was almost impossible to break through. Although Liang Yinge was powerful, he would be seriously injured if he broke through such a large formation. Chu Li could reap the benefits as it was much better than the previous life and death battle. As soon as he appeared, he glanced around and frowned. He did not find Liang Yinge and the others. Only a mess was left behind by the 2 gray-robed elders and Liang Yinge. Chu Li frowned. Did they break out of the formation? He had to sense it carefully. Liang Yinge was currently at his weakest. They disappeared, or they might have gone to the vast cold palace. Chu Li's figure flashed and circled around Liang Yinge's original position. After a quarter of an hour, he suddenly stopped and found Liang Yinge. Liang Yinge was sitting cross-legged under an old pine tree. There was no one else around, including the 2 gray-robed elders. Chu Li felt strange, but he could not care so much. Liang Yinge's face was as pale as paper. His handsome face was calm, but his body was abnormally weak, as if he would be blown away by the wind at any time. Chu Li was not in a hurry to go up. He just stared and did not move. Liang Yinge's body seemed to be exceptionally bright. A faintly discernible light circulated around his body. Ordinary people would not notice it, but Chu Li's sharp eyes could see it clearly. He sighed in relief. It seemed that Liang Ying's injuries were real and not fake. Thinking of this, he looked around to find the best position. He wanted to use the power of the formation to hit the target. After observing for a while, he suddenly flashed and appeared 20 meters above him. He shot 2 blades at Liang Ying at the same time. The saber light was like lightning, flashing past. Liang Ying felt that something was wrong. He shot out and dodged into the air. TSS, TSS. Just then, 2 blades appeared. It was as if he sent his thighs to be shot. To prevent him from wearing the treasured clothing again, Chu Li shot his legs first. Liang Ying stared at Chu Li with a gloomy face. Chu Li appeared and smiled at him. "Pavilion Master Liang, how have you been?" "Despicable and shameless," Liang Ying said coldly. "You want to kill me? Come." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "It's a pity that your treasured clothing couldn't save your life. The Jing dynasty must have suffered a great loss with the death of 2 formation masters." Sigh. "I'm really sorry. It's the saint's orders. As a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, I really can't disobey them. If you want to blame someone, blame the saint." He spoke nonsense to distract Liang Ying's attention, and the saint was the one who could attract Liang Ying's attention the most. Chi. Whoosh! 2 saber lights were shot at Liang Ying at the same time, one at his throat and the other at his lower abdomen. He then waved his hand again, and the other 2 flying knives shot to the right. Liang Ying's complexion was extremely bad, but his body movement technique was like a ghost. He instantly dodged 2 flying daggers to the right and collided with the 2 flying daggers that came after him. The manifestation of nature restoration had already figured out where he was going to hide. At this moment, it was already too late for him to dodge. He placed his palms in front of him to block. Chi. 2 blades pierced through his palms and shot diagonally into the air from above his shoulders. Chu Li shook his head and sighed as he threw another flying knife. Liang Ying's perseverance was extraordinary. He used his palms to forcibly change the direction of the flying knife. Not only did he rely on his skill, but he also relied on his fearlessness towards pain. When the flying knife pierced through his palms, the bones of his hands hit the flying knife just in time, thus changing the direction of the high-speed flying knife. It did not seem difficult, but he had to be ruthless to himself first. This made Chu Li even more afraid. His killing intent became stronger, so he threw one knife after another. In one breath, he threw all the flying knives he had on him. There were a total of 24 knives, and 12 of them hit Liang Ying. Liang Ying was like a bloody gourd. His whole body was soaked in blood. This time, his face was even paler. It was not fake. Chu Li went forward and collided head-on with him, forcing him to use his secret skill. If he still could not break the formation after using his secret skill, then he would completely lose. After a few consecutive palm energies, Chu Li's palms were dyed red by Liang Ying and dripped with blood. The palm energy of the 9 kills palm was extremely keen and pure. It came wave after wave, and there was a trace of the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture's shadow. This time, Chu Li restrained him and was not afraid of the 9 kills palm energy. Through the palm energy, he found that Liang Ying was indeed abnormally weak. He suddenly had a guess. It was very likely that Liang Ying had already used his secret skill. Thinking of this, he no longer had any scruples and fiercely performed his secret skill. Suddenly, his body grew taller, and his speed and strength doubled. He instantly knocked Liang Ying down, then hit his dantian with his palm and destroyed his cultivation level. Everything happened in a flash. After a long stalemate, the turning point was completed in an instant. After a moment, the difference was like heaven and earth. Ha ha! Chu Li looked up and laughed. Liang Ying's face was gloomy. He stared at him with resentment but did not say a word. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and stared at Liang Ying with a smile. Tell me, Pavilion Leader Liang, you like our saint, right? Yes. Liang Yinga scoffed. Chu Li read his mind. Indeed, he had feelings for Sun Mingyue. This answer was to cover up, as if he deliberately said something wrong to mislead Chu Li. Chu Li was overjoyed. He could finally see Liang Yinga's mind. He did not know how many secrets he could pry. Thinking of this, he was inexplicably excited. He could not wait to ask, "May I know who your master is, Pavilion Leader Liang?" "You won't know even if I tell you," Liang Yinga said coldly. He did not remain silent because he knew that he would only suffer. This Zhao Dai was not a soft-hearted person. Chu Li said, "Zhu Lai Yang?" Liang Yinga was shocked. Chu Li smiled. "There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall. No one can jump out from a crack in a rock." "Is Zhu Lai Yang dead or alive?" Chu Li asked. "Of course he's alive. He's an enlightened master." Liang Yinga scoffed. "You know Honorable Master Zhu. He's quite impressive. Zhu Liang is a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. He betrayed the sect and stole the spirit crane technique, am I right?" Chu Li shifted his gaze elsewhere but asked unhurriedly, as if he was indifferent. Liang Yinga frowned and looked at him. "Who are you? It's impossible for a disciple of the Holy Church of Light to know this. This was not something that ordinary people could know. It was a secret among secrets. Moreover, Green Deer Cliff was detached from the world and was extremely strict in recruiting disciples. The only traitor was Zhu Liang. Although Zhu Liang was an enlightened master, very few people knew his origin. If he did not say it, Green Deer Cliff would not say it either. Who would know? In this era, there were even fewer people who knew this secret. He did not expect a disciple of the Holy Church of Light to mention this. Chu Li said, "I've heard about it. I'm very curious. I didn't expect Green Deer Cliff to have this secret. Zhu Liang didn't return the spirit crane technique to Green Deer Cliff, right? If he didn't have a grudge, he wouldn't have betrayed the sect. Why would he return the spirit crane technique?" "What's the use of knowing?" Liang Yinga said. "Not everyone can cultivate the spirit crane technique. No matter how powerful the Holy Church of Light is, you can't get the spirit crane technique." "You cultivated the spirit crane technique too?" Chu Li scoffed. "No." Liang Yinga shook his head. Chapter 12:23. P.S. I've been attending the author salon organized by the company these past few days, so my updates haven't been good. I'm really sorry. 32? He would make up for it in the next 10 days. He pondered for a while and finally looked at Liang Yinga. Why did Zhu Liang return the spirit crane technique? Who knows what Grandmaster is thinking? Liang Yinga said faintly, "As an enlightened master, how can his thoughts be the same as an ordinary person's? I advise you not to make wild guesses. It's just a waste of effort." That's true. Chu Li nodded. It seems like his relationship with Green Deer Cliff isn't as complicated as outsiders think. It's very intriguing. Liang Yinga smiled faintly and did not say much. Chu Li asked, "Aren't you curious?" "I'm not curious." Liang Yinga shook his head. "These are the things of the ancient people. What's the use of being curious now? It won't change the outcome." Chu Li said, "Is Zhu Liang really dead?" "What do you mean?" "Maybe he's not dead yet. Who can say for sure how long an enlightened master's lifespan is? What we're saying now might not be true." Chu Li shook his head. "It's used to confuse everyone." He had originally thought that there were only 2 enlightened masters in a country, but the trip to the Imperial Mausoleum made him understand that even the most obvious things could be fake. There had been enlightened masters in the Imperial Mausoleum before, but there had never been any rumors about them. Through this incident, he held a skeptical attitude towards everything. All common sense had to be questioned. Was it true? Was someone purposely saying this to mislead him? Liang Yinga frowned. "Why did you confuse everyone?" "That's what I'm curious about too." Chu Li shook his head. But you don't know if Zhu Liang is dead or not. Liang Ying's frown deepened, but he did not refute. Initially, he was certain that his grandmaster was dead, but after hearing Chu Li's words, he thought about it and felt that it might not be unreasonable. How did his grandmaster die? Where was his corpse, or the heaven god and elixir? These were all mysteries, and Master had never said that Grandmaster had died. Chu Li asked, "Mysterious Pavilion has spies in both the Li dynasty and the Ji dynasty, right?" "Yes." Liang Ying nodded calmly. Chu Li said, "Tell me, I'll give you a quick death." "Do you think I'll tell you?" Liang Ying chuckled and shook his head. "I didn't expect you to be so childish. It seems like you have a high tolerance for pain," Chu Li said. "I just don't know if you can withstand the soul-searching technique." "You can try," Liang Ying said. Chu Li raised his eyebrows, but he did not make a move. From Liang Ying's mind, he saw that Liang Ying possessed a secret skill that could temporarily borrow energy to burn his blood essence. This was a completely different path from the current martial arts world. Chu Li had to use his inner energy to perform the soul-searching palm, but Liang Ying could use this inner energy to activate his secret skill and burn his blood essence. Even if his martial arts were crippled, he could still turn his blood essence into power. He had infinite strength and was as fast as lightning. This was the essence borrowing technique. The origin borrowing art burned one's essence blood, which was actually one's lifespan. Chu Li could see from his mind that for every 15 minutes he used it, his lifespan would decrease by 10 years. Chu Li felt that this technique was profound. Although the price was a little high, at a critical moment, compared to dying completely, losing 10 years of lifespan was nothing. Even 20, 30, 50, or even 100 years was nothing compared to dying immediately. Liang Ying frowned and looked at Chu Li. "You have the eye of insight?" He was extremely smart. Chu Li's words seemed to hit his heart as if he could see what he was thinking. He immediately thought of the eye of insight or an antique study similar to it. Although he did not know the eye of insight, he could see through other people's thoughts with a glance through thoroughly meticulous observation and understanding of people's hearts. That was why he could control the mysterious pavilion at such a young age as if it was his own arm. His prestige was unprecedented. Chu Li was shocked, but a smile appeared on his face. "The eye of insight? Haha, interesting. You really have a whimsical imagination. If I had the eye of insight, I wouldn't be a branch leader. I would have become a priest long ago." "That's true." Liang Ying nodded lightly. Zhao Dai's cultivation level was strong enough that he was only slightly inferior to him. This was already very impressive. Their statuses were worlds apart, but their martial arts skills were not too far apart. This could only mean that Zhao Dai was not successful. After the previous incident, Liang Ying had investigated Zhao Dai in detail and knew that Zhao Dai was troubled by his personality. Once he had the eye of insight, his personality would not be like that. Whether it was intentional or not, he would definitely not be as impulsive as Zhao Dai. Chu Li asked, "What are you working with the saint for?" "You're a smart person. You can guess it, right?" Liang Ying asked. Chu Li shook his head. Liang Ying said, "It's nothing much. It's just to deal with the Fu dynasty." "You're quite bold," Chu Li said. Liang Ying said coldly, "Who's willing to be the Fu dynasty's puppet and be manipulated by them forever?" Chu Li asked, "What hope do you have?" Liang Ying said, "The Fu dynasty's strength is beyond imagination." Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. "If it's that easy, the Fu dynasty would have been overthrown long ago. However, your courage is commendable. I admire you. Kill me if you want. It's not an injustice to die in the hands of Sun Mingyue." Liang Ying scoffed. Chu Li smiled. "All right, I'll send you on your way." He raised his hand and was about to shoot a blade, but he suddenly felt danger. He disappeared in a flash, and a palm energy silently hit his original position. A deep pit instantly appeared. Then, a white figure flashed and landed in front of Liang Yinge. Then, it turned into a white light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Chu Li was a shrewd person, he could not help but be furious. Just as he was about to succeed, someone interfered and saved Liang Yinge. It was unforgivable. In order to cripple and kill Liang Yinge, he had spent a lot of effort. It was only under the right timing, geographical, and social conditions that he was able to achieve the current situation. Just as he was about to achieve his goal, he actually failed. Liang Yinge smelled a faint fragrance and turned to look. He smiled. Masters Jr. It was a beautiful middle-aged woman who was tugging at his sleeve as if she was riding the wind. At first glance, she looked like a young girl. Her skin was smooth and exquisite, snow-white and sparkling like a piece of white jade. However, there were faint wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Time had left its mark on her body. Masters Jr., why are you here? Liang Yinge smiled. The beautiful middle-aged woman was dressed in snow-white clothes. She looked like a fairy who did not belong to the mortal world. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Shao Qi's. I predicted that you'll be in great danger, so I could only rush over. The middle-aged woman said plainly, when will you suffer such a loss? Although she predicted it and saw it with her own eyes, she still found it unbelievable. Liang Yinge was peerless in the world. He appeared once every few hundred years. His qualifications were unparalleled in the Jing nation. Ever since he left the mountain, he had always let others suffer losses. Chapter 12:24. Sigh. I've failed miserably this time. This fella used a formation to trap me. If it wasn't for the formation, I would have killed him many times over. I see that you didn't manage to take advantage of him. Liang Yinge was extremely uncomfortable when he heard Masters Jr. praising Chu Li. He quickly said, the last time he escorted the Li dynasty's 12th prince to the Jing dynasty, I chased him until he was battered. Battered. Why didn't you kill him? This fella is cunning and shameless. He actually joined forces with the Fu dynasty's masters, which is why he escaped. Liang Yinge curled his lips and scoffed disdainfully. He was furious when he thought about it. This fellow was so slippery that he could never catch him. If he was not careful, he would backfire. He really deserved to die. The beautiful middle-aged woman smiled faintly. That's right. Masters Jr. Shao Gu, you're becoming more arrogant. You'll definitely suffer. I might not be able to save you next time. With Masters Jr. here, I don't have to worry. What will you do when I'm gone? How can that be? Liang Yinge laughed. Masters Jr. isn't old at all. I don't know how long you'll live. I don't have much time left. The beautiful middle-aged woman shook her head and laughed. Liang Yinge frowned and said unhappily, Masters Jr. The beautiful middle-aged woman smiled. She was indifferent to life and death. I'll go to the Ji dynasty in a while. It might be a long time before I return. The Ji dynasty. Liang Yinge frowned. Masters Jr., why are you going to the Ji dynasty? To go back and have a look, the beautiful middle-aged woman replied. Liang Yinge hesitated before asking, Masters Jr., is Master's ancestor still alive? Of course not. The beautiful middle-aged woman frowned. Why are you suddenly asking this? Masters Jr., you never told me when Master's ancestor passed away, Liang Yinge said. He went to the Outland more than 1,000 years ago. The Crescent Cryptic's 9 kills trial was passed down by Master before he passed away. He was far-sighted and predicted that spiritual energy would decrease in the future. He couldn't rely on spiritual energy to become an enlightened master, so he had to find another way. Thus, he created the Crescent Cryptic's 9 kills trial. Then why did my master suffer chi deviation? He deserves it. He secretly cultivated the spirit crane technique. The beautiful middle-aged woman's expression turned cold. Liang Yinge braced himself and asked, Can't I cultivate the spirit crane technique? Every time he asked about Master, Uncle Master would be filled with hatred. He knew that her love had turned into hatred. His martial aunt was angry at his master for abandoning her. If I cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial first, I won't be able to cultivate the Spirit Crane technique. If I cultivate the Spirit Crane technique, I can cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial. The beautiful middle-aged woman, Ding Ruijie, said faintly. When Master was still alive, he had always resented Green Deer Cliff for having such a high threshold. In the end, he created this Crescent 9 kills trial. However, the threshold of the Crescent 9 kills trial is even higher. Therefore, Master was enlightened and understood Green Deer Cliff's difficulties. He asked Senior Brother to return the Spirit Crane technique to Green Deer Cliff. Liang Yinge frowned. Since Grandmaster has betrayed Green Deer Cliff, why did he return the Spirit Crane technique? Green Deer Cliff won't forgive Grandmaster anyway. Doing something superfluous will only make people think that you're weak and easy to bully. Only by having a clear conscience can one successfully ascend to the Grandmaster's outland. Ding Ruijie said. Moreover, he doesn't want us to become enemies with Green Deer Cliff. He's afraid that Green Deer Cliff will take revenge on us. No matter how powerful Grandmaster is, he's already entered the outland. He won't come back just to stand up for us. Liang Yinge asked, Is Green Deer Cliff that strong? Green Deer Cliff's strength is much higher than you think. Ding Ruijie said, Whether it's the Li dynasty or the Ji dynasty, the 4 major sects can't be underestimated. Yes. Liang Yinge nodded. He now had a deep understanding of this sentence. Who would have thought that a remote branch leader of the Holy Church of Light would have such a cultivation level? Liang Yinge asked again, Has Master returned the secret manual to Green Deer Cliff? How could he disobey Master's order? Naturally, he has returned it. Ding Ruijie said, however, with his personality, he wouldn't be willing to return it just like that. He must have secretly read it and cultivated it on his own. As a result, he lost his life. Liang Yinge thought about it and shook his head. As a disciple, he naturally could not point out his master's shortcomings. However, from his master's uncle's usual words, he knew that his master was not content with his place. He was reckless and daring. Ding Ruijie said, when Senior Brother gave the Spirit Crane technique, he made a promise with Green Deer Cliff. The next generation's successor can only cultivate the last 3 levels of the Spirit Crane technique if his martial arts is stronger than yours. Master is really bad. Liang Yinge shook his head and laughed. His qualifications were considered unparalleled in the world. Even the Green Deer Cliff disciples were not stronger than him. Ding Ruijie said, Green Deer Cliff is a big sect. Their reputation is extremely important, especially in front of us. If the current generation's successor isn't confident, he won't come to challenge us. Liang Yinge smiled. Master's uncle, when they come to challenge us, do you want me to loosen my grip? That's up to you. Ding Ruijie glanced at him. She had personally taught this nephew of hers, so she naturally understood his personality. He only revealed 70% of his abilities and was good at disguising himself. The Green Deer Cliff disciples might be confident, but they might not win. Liang Yinge smiled and nodded. When Master was younger, he accepted disciples and Master's uncles into the sect. 20 years ago, Master's uncles accepted him on behalf of Master's uncles who had died from Qi deviation. In short, it had become a tradition for Master's uncles to accept disciples on behalf of others. Master's uncles looked middle-aged, but he was already a few hundred years old. As for whether he was 300, 200, or even 400 years old, he did not know. Ding Ruijie suddenly turned to look. He's catching up? Liang Yinge smiled. He could not wait for Chu Li to catch up. With Ding Ruijie's light body technique, the two of them had long left the ascending Dragon Mountain and were no longer shrouded by the formation. Ding Ruijie nodded lightly and said, There's no door to hell, but he still wants to come. Master's uncle. Liang Inga hurriedly said. Impossible, Ding Ruijie said. Liang Inga said, if there's no formation, I'm still confident that I can kill him. Ding Ruijie glanced at him. If you want to kill him, then kill him. Isn't it the same if you kill him or I kill him? Shut up. She understood Liang Inga's personality. He wanted to keep the ugly guy alive and kill him himself. How could she let him do as he pleased? All right. Liang Inga sighed. He knew that it was useless to say more as Master's uncle would not listen. She deliberately slowed down and said, I've underestimated his light body technique. If Chu Li did not chase after them, she would immediately leave with Liang Inga. If Chu Li chased after them, he would be courting death, and she would not let him go. Her deduction technique was ethereal connection, and her actions had its own rules. Chu Li's figure could be seen from afar. His green robe fluttered in the wind, his figure was elegant, and his temperament was free and unrestrained. In a short while, he had caught up to Ding Ruijie. Chu Li was depressed and angry. Even if she was a beauty, and a beauty who could retain her looks, he still wanted to attack her. Liang Inga laughed. Zhao Dai, you're so smart. Why are you so muddle-headed that you're courting death? Chu Li said coldly, you're a real man, the mysterious pavilion master, but you need a woman to protect you. How dare you laugh? This is my master's uncle. Liang Inga smiled. What's so embarrassing about being saved by master's uncle? You're lucky this time. Unfortunately, I won't have the chance to take revenge today. Yes, you won't have the chance to take revenge. Chu Li sneered. He looked at Ding Ruijie and sneered. Her? As soon as he finished speaking, he dodged and moved a meter horizontally, but he still could not dodge. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. An invisible and powerful force hit his chest. Everything in front of him was moving backward rapidly. At this time, there was a sharp pain in his chest. Chapter 12:25. Chu Li was not surprised. Instead, he was delighted. He was the best at restraining this kind of attack. He used the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture to counter it. It was cold when it was cold, and it was hot when it was hot. He kept converting it into his inner energy, which prevented his vital organs from being injured. Bang! He spat out a mist of blood in the air and used the power of this palm to activate the divine light body. His figure suddenly sped up and disappeared from Liang Inga's sight when the mist of blood fell. Ding Ruijie also disappeared at the same time. Liang Inga stood there and laughed. Masters Jr. had attacked. Zhao Dai would definitely die. Master's divine movement skill was best at borrowing the power of heaven and earth, and even crossing space. It was beyond imagination and was similar to divine power. Chu Li felt a murderous intent following him closely like a shadow. He could not shake it off no matter how hard he tried, nor could he avoid it. He activated the divine light body to its limit and was extremely fast. He was just short of using God's limbs. The middle-aged beauty who attacked him previously had a powerful light body technique, but more importantly, she could hide her killing intent and avoid his senses. His soul was several times stronger than ordinary people, and his intuition was sharper. He could sense the slightest evil intention and avoid it in advance. This ability was especially important against masters who were better than him. However, it failed this time. This middle-aged beauty obviously had a special heart technique that could hide her killing intent. She could pass through the formation and rescue Liang Inga without any hindrance, which meant that she was proficient in formations. Hiding her killing intent was likely related to formations. Could it be like his concentration talisman? When he killed Liang Inga, he used formations to hide from Liang Inga's senses. What goes around comes around. It was his turn to be deceived this time. The woman no longer hid her killing intent. It was obvious that she was determined to kill him. Her light body technique was similar to imminent skyline, but her speed was faster. After all, she had hundreds of years of experience. Her killing intent was as dense as a sword. It was as if the tip of a sword was pressed against his back and could stab him at any time. Chu felt cold all over and had the urge to use God's limbs, but his rationality made him suppress this urge. Once he used God's limbs, his identity would be suspicious. Not everyone could use divine power. There were only a few in the world, so he could not use it as he wished if he did not want to expose it. Ding Ruijie's speed was faster than his divine light body, so she finally caught up. TSS, 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 TSS. Small pits kept appearing around Chu, which was even more powerful than the hail. Chu's speed immediately changed. He was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, and he combined it with the manifestation of nature restoration to evade every attack from the invisible sword energy by a hair's breadth. He groaned inwardly. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the woman's cold eyes. She waved her hands as if she was playing a pipa. Sword chi shot out from her fingertip. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the existence of the sword aura. It was extremely solid, as if the 10 fingers had extended countless times, and the fingertips stabbed straight at him. Streaks of sword energy seemed to have materialized and were sharp. His 10 fingers cooperated with each other and weaved a sword net, leaving no room for Chu to escape. Just as the sword net was about to form, Chu suddenly sped up and rushed out of the fence. Ding Ruijie frowned. No wonder he could make Xiao Gu suffer so much. He did have some skill. Her sword chi suddenly changed and became much thicker. As a result, the sword energy was not as solid and pure as before, but its range was greatly increased. It covered almost every inch of the place, making it unavoidable. Before Chu could react, he was already hit by the sword energy. Bam 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 bam. His body moved like lightning. His fists continuously punched out divine light fist after divine light fist, breaking through the sword chi's shroud, and dashed forward. In the blink of an eye, they were more than 10 miles away. Chu raised his voice and shouted, "Aren't you afraid that Liang Yinge will be taken away by others?" Ding Ruijie did not comment. If Liang Yinge was in danger, she would immediately sense it and rush back. Chu shouted, "I still don't know your name after fighting for so long. Tell me your name." "Shut up." Ding Ruijie scoffed. She suddenly spat out a white gas. It shrank in the air and condensed into an invisible thin needle. It slowly merged with the surroundings like an ice needle melting into water. It silently shot toward Chu's back. This invisible thin needle merged with the void and was covered with killing intent. It approached silently, and even a grandmaster could not guard against it. It was extremely vicious. Chu saw it clearly with the omniscient mirror. His heart was filled with killing intent. He sneered, "What a vicious woman! Damn it!" He took a hit from the sword energy and shot 2 flying blades at the invisible needle. Ding! The flying blades fell as if they had hit a metal stone. It was invisible and unintentional, but it was so pure and terrifying. How many people could escape from this kind of needle? If he did not have the omniscient mirror, he would have been hit by the needle. Then, he took another hit and shot 2 more blades. Ding Ruijie frowned. She did not manage to take him down with her 4 palms, and he was still fighting back. The 2 slender fingers of her left hand bent, manipulating the 2 streaks of sword chi to meet the flying daggers. Ding ding. The clear sound was endless. The flying blades flew away in the air. Chu frowned too. This woman's reaction was too fast and beyond imagination. The 2 were 20 meters apart. At this distance, the light blade's speed was beyond one's reaction speed. It was too late to dodge the blade, let alone hit it. Moreover, while she was hitting the flying blades, the remaining 8 sword energies were still attacking him. This was not just multitasking but multitasking. Every finger was unusually agile and shot at different positions with the other fingers. Chu Li did not want to be entangled with this dangerous woman anymore, so he shouted, Liang Yingge is seriously injured. I'm afraid he's dying now. Shut up! Ding Ruijie shouted. She waved her sword energy even faster, causing Chu Li to be flustered. Chu Li suddenly shrank his body and hid behind a boulder by the side of the road. TSS, 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 TSS. Stone fragments flew everywhere and the sword energy was everywhere. After more than 20 attacks, her expression suddenly changed. She quickly chased after him. She could not sense Chu Li's presence anymore. It was possible that he had escaped from her sight. TSS. A stream of light shot toward her. The two stepped into the ascending dragon mountain again, and were shrouded by the formation. Chu Li's omniscient mirror was the most sensitive to this. He wanted to borrow the power of the formation. Ding! A clear sound was heard. The flying blade hit her chest. At such a short distance, no matter how fast she was, she could not react in time to avoid the blade. Chu Li turned around and left. As soon as he heard the sound, he knew that Ding Ruijie was wearing a treasured armor and even a heart protection mirror. The light blade could not hurt her at all. He sighed. If it was a treasured blade, he might have succeeded this time. Unfortunately, when he shot Liang Yingge, he had used up the treasured blades and did not have time to retrieve them. This time, he could not use them. Was this God's will? Ding Ruijie suddenly stopped and looked down at her chest. There was a small hole where her heart was, revealing the bluish-white inner garment, her most close-fitting treasured armor, and her heart protection mirror. If they were not here this time, she would have been stabbed. She was shocked and extremely angry. She could not wait to kill Chu Li 100 times. However, the more the murderous intent surged, the angrier she became. She wanted to leave, but when she was angry, she couldn't mobilize her troops. She couldn't casually use force when her emotions were intense. It would be fine if he was far weaker than her, but this ugly guy could threaten her life, so she had to be careful. There was a formation protecting this place. Although she was proficient in formations, she knew that if they fought, that guy would borrow the power of the formation and be powerful. Her treasured armor and heart protection mirror might not be able to protect her. I'll leave your head today. Ding Ruijie grunted, turned around, and vanished like a wisp of light. Chu Li let out a long sigh and sensed for a while. Then, he passed through the formation and completely got rid of Ding Ruijie. He would not use God's limbs in front of her. He thought about it and finally flashed a few times. He appeared at the place where he fought with Liang Yingge and kept the 9 flying blades. Then, he appeared at the peak of a mountain and buried the blades under a rock. It would be easier to retrieve them in the future. He stood at the peak with murderous intent. Chapter 12:26. Chu Li took a deep breath and suppressed his killing intent. Liang Yingge must be waiting for him to kill him, and then use the middle-aged beauty to kill him. That was what he would do. Liang Yingge was also a smart person, so how could he let go of this opportunity? He looked to the south, where Liang Yingge was, and frowned as he pondered. He could sense that Liang Yingge's killing intent was boiling in his heart, and he needed to suppress it. As the pavilion master of the mysterious pavilion, Liang Yingge's status in the Zheng dynasty was not low. He might have a spirit pill to restore his martial arts, so he had to kill him as soon as possible. However, there was also a great risk, and he needed to think about the pros and cons. After a while, he disappeared in a flash and appeared in a pine forest. He used his mind to observe a 10-mile radius and found Liang Yingge. He was sitting quietly in a gazebo, cross-legged, and recovering his martial arts. The middle-aged beauty was not around, but Chu Li did not feel relieved. Instead, he became vigilant. Therefore, he used the omniscient mirror to the extreme and read the thoughts that flashed in Liang Yingge's mind. He suddenly sneered. It was just as he thought. Liang Yingge used himself as bait, and his master's junior Ding Ruijie was hiding at the side. Once he appeared, she would immediately chase and kill him. Chu Li thought about it and used the omniscient mirror to observe the surroundings again. He narrowed the range and wanted to find Ding Ruijie. He did not know what treasure Ding Ruijie used to hide herself. He knew that she was nearby, but he could not sense her and the omniscient mirror could not see her. Chu Li thought for a while and took out a few pieces of white jade. These pieces of white jade flashed with a warm luster, which was far better than normal white jade. At a glance, one could tell that it was valuable. They were rare treasures in the border town. He looked at the 10 pieces of white jade with some regret and shook his head. These 10 pieces of white jade were made with a lot of effort. They needed to be polished, and he would take some time every day to slowly absorb the purple gas from the rising sun and condense it in them. However, it was worth it to exchange these 10 pieces of white jade for Liang Ying's life. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and threw out the 9 pieces of white jade. They were all 9 meters away from him according to their unique positions. They were extremely accurate, as if they had been measured with a ruler. He put away the last piece of white jade, and his body suddenly swayed, as if he was standing in the water and looking out. Then, he returned to normal. This was not because of the activation of the formation, but because of the resonance with the last piece of white jade. Chu Li heaved a sigh of relief and suddenly disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he fluttered toward Liang Ying. Liang Ying did not move at all and did not sense anything. Along with the loss of his cultivation level, the Grandmaster's sensing ability also faded away, returning to normal. Only his physical qualities did not deteriorate due to the short period of time. When Chu Li drifted about 20 meters away, he knew that it would be difficult to get any closer. Although he did not sense Ding Ruijie, she would definitely appear. Thus, he waved both his hands, and 2 streams of light shot towards Liang Ying. The flying blade passed through without any resistance. Chu Li did not advance but retreated. An invisible needle silently shot from behind. He avoided it in advance, and it brushed past his arm. The hair on his arm seemed to stand up as he felt a fatal danger. Ding Ruijie rushed toward him like a white shadow. She waved her jade palm lightly as if there was no strength at all. However, Chu Li moved 2 steps to the side to avoid her palm. Ding Ruijie's body movement technique was even better. She followed him like a shadow. No matter how he dodged, her palm kept approaching. The subtlety of her palm technique could not be compared to Liang Ying. Chu Li glanced at Liang Ying, who was in the distance. They were 20 meters apart. Without martial arts, he did not know how he managed to avoid that attack just now. He wanted to shoot the flying blade again, but he had no time to do so. Ding Ruijie's white jade-like palms had already enveloped him, forcing him to take it head-on. Bang! The 2 palms collided, and there was a thunderous explosion. Chu Li flew backward, and his face turned red. Ding Ruijie's inner energy was as pure as mercury. Yin and yang were in harmony, and water and fire intersected. It was as if several different kinds of inner energy were mixed together and intertwined like braid. The purity and mixture blended together, and it was extremely strange and powerful. Chu Li kept changing the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in a row. His body kept retreating, and he used space to alleviate the impact. Liang Ying smiled and took out a small box that looked like a ring. He took out a red pill and slowly put it into his mouth. Chu Li saw in his mind that this was a spirit pill unique to the Jing dynasty. The small creation pill. Its effect was similar to the primary heaven pill. Ding Ruijie's face was cold. She looked at Chu Li as if she was looking at a dead man. Chu Li suddenly turned in the air and shot toward Liang Ying. "You're courting death." Ding Ruijie sneered and appeared in front of him. Bang! Their palms collided again, and Chu Li flew backward. He used the force to accelerate and suddenly went far away. Ding Ruijie sneered. "It won't be so easy to escape this time." Like a stream of light, she caught up with Chu Li in the blink of an eye. Her light body technique was so fast that Chu Li wanted to learn it. Apart from God's limbs, nothing else could compare to it. Even the imminent skyline was slightly inferior. Bang! She hit him with her palm again. She realized that compared to her deadliest invisible needle, the 9 kills palm was easier to restrain Zhao Dave. Chu Li sped up again and spat out another mouthful of blood in the air to eliminate his internal injury. He sighed in his heart. He had to replenish his blood when he returned. It was really a disaster to meet such an evil woman. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled a few miles. Chu Li instantly entered the formation that he had set up. His movements suddenly slowed down as if his injuries were acting up and he could no longer escape. Although Ding Ruijie was cold, she could not help but feel anxious. She originally thought that killing Chu Li would be a piece of cake. She did not expect Chu Li to be so tenacious. Instead, her killing intent became stronger. When she saw Chu Li reveal a flaw, she wanted to kill him with her palm. As soon as she approached Chu Li and was about to attack, she saw Chu Li's smile and felt that something was wrong. Chu Li took out the white jade and gently pinched it. The white jade turned into powder, and a stream of light shot into the sky. It flashed and disappeared as if it had never appeared. Ding Ruijie's expression changed. Chu Li had disappeared. She was originally a formation master, so how could she not know that Chu Li had set up a formation? She never thought that Chu Li could use jade talismans to refine weapons and set up a formation. She did not even have such a standard. Liang Yinge sat cross-legged and channeled. He was ecstatic. The joy of regaining what he had lost was indescribable. Waves of inner energy spread out from his stomach and kept entering his dantian. His cultivation level kept rising. In just a short while, he had become an innate master. In less than 2 hours, he could restore his original cultivation level. While he was ecstatic, he also felt regretful. It was a pity that he could not kill Chu Li personally. It was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. If Masters Jr. could cripple Zhao Dave, he could interrogate him and torture him for a few days before killing him. That would be satisfying and would be beneficial to his future cultivation. Chapter 12:27. You. Liang Yinge's expression changed, and he leaped up. Chu Li did not wait for him to speak. A stream of light flew out from his sleeve 33 and pierced through his temple without any obstruction. Liang Yinge's eyes widened and his gaze slowly dimmed. Finally, he fell to the ground. Bang! An explosion was heard from afar. Chu Li glanced at it. The formation method of jade talismans had its weaknesses. It was far better to use the terrain of the mountains to set up a formation. After all, those mountains and terrains had accumulated spiritual energy for tens of thousands of years, which was incomparable to jade talismans. Moreover, his jade talisman refining standard was ordinary, and he had just touched the door of a treasure tool. Although he knew that the jade talisman could only trap Ding Ruijie for a while, he did not expect her to break through it so quickly. Her cultivation level was beyond what he had seen. Their line had this habit. However, after Liang Yinge's death, this line would probably be broken. His thoughts were lightning fast, and he was far more agile than ordinary people. At this moment, he still had the time to sigh. Throughout history, many sects and martial arts were broken like this. Life and death were the foundation. Ding Ruijie's face was as pale as paper. When she appeared in front of Liang Yinge, Chu Li had already left, and only Liang Yinge's corpse fell on the grass. The surrounding air seemed to freeze, and the world lost its color. Little Gu. Ding Ruijie hurried forward and saw Liang Yinge's injury. Her voice trembled, and her face was as cold as steel. Tears fell from her bright eyes. Although he was a disciple, he was no different from a son. The pain of losing a son was enough to drive people crazy. Her eyes were like ice and lightning. She glanced coldly at the direction of the Ji dynasty, then carried Liang Yinge and flew away. The sun set in the Divine Light Basilica. The glacier at the top of the Great Light Peak reflected the afterglow like a golden color. The Divine Light Basilica was unusually bright. Chu Li stood in the basilica with a heavy expression. Sun Mingyue sat elegantly and dignified behind the table. She wore a snow-white dress and a white veil. She was staring at him with her bright eyes. "You're saying that you really killed Liang Yinge?" "Yes." "How did you kill him?" "I killed him. I got into big trouble." Chu Li scoffed. "Liang Yinge has a female master's junior. I'm no match for her." Ding Ruijie. Sun Mingyue regained her calmness and nodded gently. "A very powerful old monster. You met her? You're really lucky to be able to come back." He was unlucky to have encountered Ding Ruijie, but he was extremely lucky to have survived. Ding Ruijie's cultivation level was profound, and no matter how strong Zhao De was, he was no match for her. Chu Li sighed. "There's a formation on the ascending Dragon Mountain, and I used it to cripple Liang Yinge. When I was about to kill him, Ding Ruijie saved him, but I set up a formation to trap her for a moment, and took the opportunity to kill Liang Yinge." Sun Mingyue looked at him in surprise. "Can you really set up a formation?" Chu Li looked at her arrogantly. He did not bother to explain. Sun Mingyue knew that he had learned about formations in the Phoenix Goddess brothel. Although the disciples of Tian Luo sect had learned about formations, there were only a few who could use them. Although Zhao De was smart and could learn a little, he could not compare to Ding Ruijie. Ding Ruijie wasn't just a formation master, she was also a seer who could peer into the heavens. Even though she could only peer into the surface of the heavens, it was still extremely terrifying. Sun Mingyue frowned. She got up and left the armchair. She paced back and forth in front of the table with her hands behind her back. After pacing back and forth a few times, she sighed softly. She knew how powerful Liang Yinge was. At first, she thought that she would make Chu Li suffer a little, or even destroy his arrogance, and train him to change his unscrupulous and unruly character. She never thought that Chu Li would really kill Liang Yinge. Chu Li said, "Ding Ruijie will definitely take revenge." "Yes." Sun Mingyue rubbed her brows and shook her head. "Now that things have come to this, you can only return to the Great Light Peak." "Am I supposed to hide in the Great Light Peak for the rest of my life?" "Just cultivate in isolation. You'll be able to go out whenever you want if your martial arts is stronger than hers. She has hundreds of years of accumulation. How can I catch up to her in a day?" Chu Li was unconcerned. "I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about the people around me, including Senior Sister Du." As he spoke, he looked at Sun Mingyue with a faint smile. Sun Mingyue was annoyed by his expression. She asked nonchalantly, "Do you like doing? Senior Sister Du can't become Senior Sisterly, so you should just give up, Saint." Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue knew that her thoughts had been seen through. She said angrily, "You think too highly of yourself. Do you really think that doing will like you?" Chu Li smiled. "Of course not." Sun Mingyue's red lips moved slightly but stopped. She scoffed. "All right, doing won't look for you anymore." Pointing it out was a rejection. Since it was useless to force it, it was better to just give up. Chu Li smiled. "You're such a sentimental person." Sun Mingyue said, "Are you afraid that Du Ying will take revenge on you?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. Sun Mingyue saw that he was so confident. It was hard to tell if he was telling the truth. She disliked the feeling of not being in control the most. It took too much effort to see clearly, not to mention that she could not see clearly. "And those people from Gale Branch?" Chu Li frowned. "They can't keep doing this. Is there any other way?" Sun Mingyue nodded. She was very satisfied with Chu Li's worried look. His heart was not cold yet, and he was still kind and beautiful. If he only cared about himself and did not care about his subordinates, she would have killed him long ago. It was because of his bad nature that she could tolerate his troubles and still wanted to use him. Otherwise, she would have thrown him away like trash. Chu ignored her praise and asked, "Is there any other way?" "I'll send a master from the church over," Sun Mingyue said. Chu frowned. Sun Mingyue could tell that he did not believe in the church's masters. She scoffed. "There are many masters in the church. There are many who are more powerful than you." "More powerful than the priest and the others?" Sun Mingyue scoffed. The former priest, and even the priest before him are all here." Chu smiled. Sun Mingyue asked, "Are you going to stay at Great Light Peak or Gale Branch?" "Since there are masters from the church, I'll stay at Gale Branch first," Chu said. "That's good too," Sun Mingyue said. "You haven't experienced how powerful Ding Ruijie is. Don't get killed by her." Chu smiled. "Ding Ruijie's divine foresight? She knows divination," Sun Mingyue said. "She can steal heavenly secrets. She can divine my location?" Chu scoffed. Sun Mingyue said, "She can divine things that others don't know." Chu frowned and remained silent. He was really afraid that his true identity would be divined out. If Zhao Dai's identity was exposed, she would not be the only one hunting him down. The Holy Church of Light would also be hunting him down. Furthermore, it would be worse if she could divine his other identity. "Are you afraid?" Sun Mingyue smiled faintly. Chu said, "Divination is from the Fu Dynasty's Divination Pavilion, right? It's a secret skill unique to the Divination Pavilion." Sun Mingyue nodded. "Her identity is not simple." Chu frowned. "If she's that powerful, won't she be invincible?" "There's no such thing as invincible martial arts," Sun Mingyue said. "Alright, you should go back. Hurry up and cultivate in isolation. We won't need you this year." Chu looked at her discontentedly. He stopped talking halfway. Sun Mingyue said, "No matter what, martial arts is the foundation." Chu knew that he could not get any more information out of her. He stared at her with dissatisfaction. Chapter 12:28. Chu hated her keeping him in suspense. It was impossible for him to pry Sun Mingyue's mouth open, so he could only think of a way himself. She was right about one thing: there was no such thing as invincible martial arts. Between heaven and earth, if there was yin, there must be yang. Everything subdued something else, and martial arts were the same. In terms of knowledge, among all the people he knew, Xiao Shi was the most knowledgeable. When he returned to Tianshu Courtyard, Xiao Shi was talking to Xiao Qi with a smile on her face. When she saw him, she only glanced at him. Chu came to their stone table and sat down. Xiao Qi asked, "Is everything all right over there?" Her cold gaze was filled with concern as she sensed the heaviness in Chu Li's heart. Chu smiled and nodded. "Madam, do you understand heavenly prophecy?" Xiao Qi said. "It's the Fu Dynasty's Destiny Pavilion's unique, secret skill. It's very famous, but due to the harsh requirements to cultivate it, only a few people in the world know how to use it." Chu nodded slowly. Xiao Qi continued, "Using this skill will damage one's lifespan, and one will be punished by the heavens. Therefore, even if one successfully cultivates this skill, he won't easily use it, so you don't have to worry." Xiao Shi pursed her red lips and scoffed. "Did you offend someone who cultivates the art of divination? The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets usually don't involve themselves with the secular world. How did you offend them?" "I didn't expect her to be from the Pavilion of Secrets either, but it's too late now." He briefly explained the situation to her. It was just a few words, but it made Xiao Shi's jade-like face turn serious. She said hatefully, "This Sun Mingyue is really up to no good. She wants to get rid of you." Xiao Qi frowned. "Has your identity been exposed?" She had always been worried about this. Once Chu was exposed, he would not have a good life anymore. The power of the Holy Church of Light was not to be trifled with. Once they went berserk, they would be terrifying. Chu Li smiled. You don't have to go through so much trouble to get rid of me. Oh right, is there any way to restrain the divination art? No matter how powerful he was still far from Sun Mingyue. The stronger one's cultivation was, the deeper one's perception would be. Sun Mingyue's power was usually hidden, like an iceberg hidden in the water. Occasionally, he would see the tip of the iceberg. Shaoqi said, You don't have to worry. The Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture can evade the heavenly oracle spell. Chu Li heaved a long sigh of relief. Thank God. His heart was finally at ease. Xiaoshi chuckled. But don't get too full of yourself. If your divination art is cultivated to the pinnacle, you won't be able to protect yourself if your Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture isn't profound enough. Chu Li nodded slowly. He had been cultivating Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture all this while. Even though he was cultivating all 4 scriptures at the same time, his speed was several times faster than an ordinary person's. After all, he had only been cultivating for a short period of time and his level of attainment was still lacking. If he wanted to avoid the divination art, he would have to speed up his cultivation of the 4 scriptures. He stood up. I should go to Prince Kang's banquet. The 2 girls nodded simultaneously. Prince Kang's mansion. Chu Li and Prince Kong sat in a gazebo in the backyard. Prince Kong usually hosted a banquet to entertain his guests in the living room. Prince Kong and Chu Li had a close relationship, so there was no need for him to stand on ceremony. Prince Kong brought Chu Li to the backyard and chatted while eating and drinking. The surrounding maids and guards were all chased away, leaving only the 2 of them in the large back garden. When the lanterns were first lit, the pavilion was brightly lit as if it was daytime. The Royal Highness has summoned me. Is there a reason? Chu Li put down his wine glass and asked with a smile. Prince Kang's smiling face slowly darkened. Chu Li smiled. Your Royal Highness, we're not strangers. There's no harm in telling you. Prince Kong sighed and shook his head. I'm too embarrassed to tell you. Something about the secret Guardian's Hall? Chu Li asked. Lu Yurong has become the commander of the secret Guardian's Hall. Is she trying to use your Royal Highness to establish her authority? Prince Kong smiled bitterly. Lu Yurong is indeed powerful. The Crown Prince is lucky. What did she catch, your Royal Highness? Sigh. Prince Kong sighed. One of my concubines has a questionable identity. Chu Li stared at him. Prince Kong said, She used to be a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li burst out laughing. Your Royal Highness, please don't joke around. Do I look like I'm joking? Prince Kong said impatiently. How can I be in the mood to joke around at a time like this? I'm so worried. Chu Li touched his chin and could not help but laugh. Even the Royal Highness would do such a foolish thing? It happened when I was young. Prince Kong shook his head. But when love comes, everything ends. I can't leave just because of her identity. Tell me, young Chu. You used to be from the secret Guardian's Hall. Do you have any ideas? Chu Li sighed and shook his head in silence. He never thought that Prince Kong would make such a huge mistake. As a prince of a country, he had access to many military affairs and secret. It was inevitable that he would reveal 1 or 2 things when he spoke to the concubines. If the concubines revealed this to the Holy Church of Light, the losses would be immeasurable. Many people would lose their lives because of this. It was not that Prince Kong did not know about this, but he committed the mistake despite knowing it. Chu Li had nothing to say. Does the Emperor know? Chu Li asked. Prince Kong said, I've told my brother. That's good. Chu Li sighed in relief. Since the Emperor knows, I'll let the Emperor tell Lu Yurong about it. But it's not convenient for my brother to tell her. Prince Kong shook his head. That girl Lu Yurong has predicted this and is purposely making things difficult for me. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. It'll be troublesome if the Emperor doesn't tell her. Based on my understanding of Lu Yurong, she'll definitely make a big fuss and then. The consequences were obvious. If Chu Li and Prince Kong were not friends, he would agree with Lu Yurong's actions. As a prince, how could he marry a disciple of the Holy Church of Light as a concubine? It was like playing with fire, forcing everyone in the Ji dynasty to play with it. The imperial concubine has left the Holy Church of Light a long time ago, Prince Kong said. Chu Li asked, "Can you be sure, Your Royal Highness?" "I guarantee it with my life," Prince Kong said. Chu Li pondered for a moment. "Can I see the imperial concubine?" "Young Chu, you still don't believe me," Prince Kong said impatiently. Chu Li said, "Your Royal Highness, you're involved in this and can't make a clear judgment. I'm an outsider." All right. Prince Kong hesitated for a moment before agreeing. He knew that Chu Li was agreeing to help. He raised his voice and shouted, "Someone, invite Princess Ji over." After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a graceful woman dressed in a green robe gracefully walked over. She looked middle-aged and much younger than Prince Kong. She was beautiful and had bright eyes. She had the temperament of a young girl. Chu Li sighed. It seemed that she had been living a happy life all these years. Prince Kong had protected her well and rarely experienced the hardships and vicissitudes of life. "Princess, this is young Chu." Prince Kong waved his hand and chuckled. "He's very familiar with the disciples of the Holy Church. I've heard of God's Eye Chu Li. He's the enemy of the Holy Church." Ji-Man chuckled. Chu Li gave a fist salute and bowed. Prince Kong said, "Don't scare young Chu." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "Is the princess still a disciple of the Holy Church of Light?" "Of course," Ji-Man said. "If I'm not a disciple of the Holy Church, then I'm a traitor. The Holy Church will definitely kill traitors. There's no escape. It seems that the Holy Church of Light wants you to lie low for a long time." Chu Li smiled. "That's right," Ji-Man said. "You seem to know a lot." Chu Li shook his head. "You flatter me. Do you want to kill me?" Ji-Man smiled slyly. Chapter 12:29. Chu Li smiled. "Why would you want to kill the princess?" "Because I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." "You've stumped me, princess." Chu Li shook his head and laughed. If she was really a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, she would be punished for leaking information. However, through the observation of the omniscient mirror, Ji-Man was now a traitor of the Holy Church of Light. She had no intention of contributing to the Holy Church of Light. Of course, she was willing to help as long as it did not harm Prince Kong. Women were extroverted since ancient times. She did not care about the Holy Church of Light since she had a husband. He shook his head. "Princess, you have to be careful. How can the Holy Church of Light not know what you're thinking? But why have you been holding it in?" Ji-Man's face darkened and she sighed. She knew the Holy Church of Light very well. They would never let go of any traitor. Since ancient times, no traitor of the Holy Church of Light had survived. There were many masters in the Holy Church of Light. Once they went all out to kill someone, there would be no hope of survival. It would be useless even if they hid in the Fu dynasty. Someone did it before, but he did not survive. Ordinary people only saw the Holy Church of Light. It was secretive and mysterious. Only the true disciples knew that the Holy Church of Light had several peaks. Each peak was home to top-notch masters. Chu Li pondered. "They're holding back because they want to make trouble in the future. They're threatening your Royal Highness's life to force you to leak information. Can you refuse?" "Young Chu," Prince Kong said. Chu Li said, "Your Royal Highness, this will happen. The princess understands." Prince Kong scoffed. "I'd rather lose my life." Chu Li shook his head. Ji-Man could betray the Holy Church of Light for him, let alone the Ji dynasty. Prince Kong frowned. "Young Chu, tell me quickly. Do you have any ideas?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. "Play dead." Prince Kong asked, "Play dead?" Chu shook his head and looked at Man. Once the princess dies, Lu Yurong won't be able to make a fuss. Death is the most important thing. The emperor will be able to speak. That's a good idea. Man smiled. She looked at Chu. You won't let me fake my death, right? Chu smiled. Don't worry, princess. Prince Kong also laughed and said, Princess, you can really let your imagination run wild. Are you afraid that little Chu will kill someone? Ha! Man rolled her eyes at him and snorted. Little Chu's reputation is not just for show. In her eyes, Chu could be said to be cruel and merciless. According to her situation, the best way to break out of this situation was to kill her, and then everything would be fine. His Royal Highness might be sad that he had just died, but he would also slowly calm down and accept this matter. He might not even fall out with Chu and become enemies. After all, Chu was doing this for his own good. When she thought of this, she felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at Chu with a complicated gaze. Chu said, Not many people from the Holy Church of Light know about the princess's identity, right? Everyone thinks I'm dead. Only the Holy Maiden knows I'm alive, Man said. Chu grinned. It seems that the princess is also one of the top disciples in the Great Light Peak. That's why she's been entrusted with such an important task. This is supposed to be an easy task. Man rolled her eyes at Prince Kong. If she had not met this enemy, she would not have done such an unwise thing. However, if it was not for him, she would not be able to live such a happy life. Life was unpredictable, but she did not regret it. Man, I want to talk to little Chu about something else, Prince Kong said. Man grinned. Sure, go to the Verdant Cloud brothel if you want. Of course not. Prince Kong quickly waved his hand. Man chuckled. Look at how scared you are. Why are you feeling guilty? Little Chu, did the food taste good? It looks, smells, and tastes great, Chu praised. I personally cooked it. It's good that you like it. Man pursed her lips and smiled before she left. Chu turned to look at Prince Kong. Prince Kong was staring at her graceful back. Chu secretly shook his head and smiled bitterly. No wonder Prince Kong was so obsessed with her. He even dared to do something like this. Man was indeed very charming. She was amorous and had an ever-changing temperament. Every frown and smile of hers was moving. After such a long time, love often turned into familial love. Prince Kong should have become numb to her beauty. However, looking at him, it was obvious that he had experienced it for a long time. No wonder he was so desperate. Chu said, Actually, there's another way. Say it. Prince Kong turned to look at him. Chu said, Your Royal Highness, die together. Actually, it's not a bad idea to go to the Imperial Mausoleum. Fake your death and live in seclusion. Prince Kong frowned and thought about it. He sighed. I'm afraid my brother won't agree to it. I'm afraid the Emperor would be eager for your Royal Highness to do so. Chu smiled. It's just because of our brotherhood and the criticism that I can't bring myself to say it. I'm just waiting for your Royal Highness to say it himself. If that's the case. Prince Kong frowned and thought about it. If there's no other way, this is the only way. However, it's really frustrating to be pushed away by a little girl. Chu said, That's true. Young Chu, I know that the two of you have a good relationship. Prince Kong smiled faintly. When Chu left the Imperial Mausoleum, Lu Yurong escorted him all the way. Chu smiled bitterly. She's afraid that if I die, she won't be able to find a rival. The two of us are not as romantic as your Royal Highness thinks. It's hard for two extremely intelligent people to be together. Prince Kong nodded and smiled. However, there are exceptions. As long as one of them can suppress the other, I think you can suppress her, young Chu. Chu shook his head and smiled. If that was the case, they would be fighting all day and night. It would be exhausting. The backyard of the Crown Prince's residence was brightly lit. Lu Yurong was reading in a gazebo on the lake. Her clothes were as white as snow and her eyes were as bright as the stars. 9 maids were either boating on the lake or in other gazebos. They were still surrounding her in a formation. Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of her. The 9 maids looked up at him cautiously. When they saw that it was him, they relaxed and continued with their work without paying much attention to him. Lu Yurong's hair was loose. It was as black as silk and her face was as fair as jade. She put down her scroll and glanced at him. You went to see Prince Kong? The secret guardian's hall is getting better, Chu Li said. He had already recognized that the people from the secret guardian's hall were in the imperial residence of Prince Kong through the omniscient mirror. However, he did not say anything. It was not a good thing that the imperial residence of Prince Kong had no secret guardians. You want to plead for Prince Kong? Lu Yurong said coldly. Chu Li waved his hand. Why would Prince Kong be chosen? Logically speaking, Prince Kong is already very good as a member of the imperial family. Could it be the emperor's intention? Lu Yurong said, It was Prince Kong who came. I was checking the internal security of the imperial family, especially the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. I didn't expect Princess Kong to come. How could I just let her go? Chu Li nodded. If you just let her go, you'll lose your dignity as the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. Lu Yurong scoffed. This is really shocking. It scared me. She knew that Chu Li could understand. If he was in her shoes, he would have done the same. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.